This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good morning, everybody. Morning from Tswalu Private Game Reserve this morning. As you can see, it looks like it's going to be such a beautiful day, beginning of the beautiful sunrise on the eastern side where we're looking at. And now we're just sitting here on the western end of the quarantine. That's what you see the sunrise from. So maybe, it's going to be bringing for us such a beautiful day this morning. Welcome aboard to your very own Safari Live through the African bush. Good morning again, everybody. Such a beautiful day here. So we're looking at the sun. Looks like, I know it's going to be much hotter, maybe, I believe, because already the temperature started from the 23 degrees 73 Fahrenheit. I believe it's going to be maybe midday, quite hot than we expect. But it's the way it is. Maybe this is where we're going to receive rain, showers sometimes, or if it happens. And my name is Andrew. I have a muscle on camera this morning. So we're going to be taking you to a safari, search for these beautiful animals, find them, look around. So my mission this morning is to find either our beautiful Tingana, if he's still around, or the Pride of Lions, any of the Pride. We're not sure, we haven't heard from the Ngoma Pride, how far they are west. So we don't have any update about them. But I would like to see them. Also, there is a pride that I heard about, Torchwood Pride, but probably far east, that's where these days have been seen. So they started to come back slightly, back into the area of Torchwood, where we believe one day we're going to find them. But, our regional pride, which normally in this area, they move in and out. That's Levi, you're very right. It's such a beautiful, especially, with a sunrise like this. And then it's not actually a lot of a cloud. So it's burning through, it's actually, already provide a lot of its own beauty. So we're coming to you live from this location this morning. Remember to talk to us. Questions and comment, and then under the age, and then you can still use kids questions at wildearth.tv. So you can also tweet us on #wildearth and at FC, which is the YouTube channel, and also you can use wildearth.tv and Explorer. For those of you who haven't been using or been part of the show, so you can go there and you can sign up, able to see what we're doing out there. So while I'm carrying on looking around here, I'm going to be sending you over to Mike with his hyena.
Well, what you're seeing there is the backside of a spotted hyena as it disappears into the thickets. Classic. Hi everyone, my name is Mike Anderson. Behind the camera is Seb, and you're joining us at Eco Training's Pridelands Conservancy, where we came to impala clearings once again, because yesterday there was a lot of hyena activity and we found hyenas again, 2 of them, but they promptly decided that as soon as we were going to go live on a safari, that they were going to disappear. So what we've got instead is a nice massive open clearing with a lot of impalas, but very far away. And these impalas are actually what got our attention in the first place, because they went galloping out of the thickets and staring across the plains towards, what we now know was the 2 hyenas that were sniffing around. Now, there were a whole bunch of wildebeest calves born on this clearing over the last couple of weeks, so I'm sure the hyenas were here to investigate if there was any leftover remains of the birthing. But for now, it's just a beautiful golden glow in this lovely open clearing. Lots of young male impalas, a whole herd of females with youngsters, and a few zebras also around in the clearing. Perfect place to start the day. Lazy boy, I think they live probably into the mid-20s, hyenas, and it also depends on what area that they live in. If there's a high proportion of other predators or even lots of other clans of hyenas, there might be lots of fights. So anywhere between, the late teens to early 20s, it's because they have to fight for the dominance of a clan, especially the females. The males not so much, although quite often male hyenas are quite nomadic. But the females, especially if they're the matriarch, they'll face many challenges to their control or domination of a clan. And of course lions kill them regularly. So in areas where there's a high proportion of other predators, they might not live as long, although generally speaking the number of hyenas can be higher, because they're generally going to find more leftover food. It's not to say they can't hunt though, but like anything, if there's an opportunity to get a free meal, then they would probably take it. I mean, they've got powerful jaws to crunch bones and strong stomach acids to break down this tough skin and hides of animals, stuff that maybe lions and leopards wouldn't necessarily eat. So if they can get the nutrients they need from that, it's a much safer way of surviving. Look at all the grass shining. This is from the dew. A lot of condensation from this extreme humidity we're facing. There's a tropical cyclone which is actually brewing and moving towards the central coast of Mozambique, which is just to our northeast. And as that storm approaches over the next few days, it's going to bring lots more humid weather. And although I don't think we're going to get a whole lot of rain from it, the northern parts of the country could potentially face quite an inundation. It's very exciting. Could always use a bit of rain, especially if the mighty Limpopo River in the northern part of the Greater Kruger, which we're part of, comes down in flood, which it hasn't done for many years. Oh, there's a little bird making noise just here. I don't know if you can see that. Do you see that bird there, Seb? I don't know what kind of bird it is, but it's making a very interesting call, sitting right here on a small stick.
Oh, yeah.
You can see it over here in this distance. I don't know what this bird is. The silhouette, and I don't know the call. But anyway, Jamie, do hyenas ever hunt impalas? They certainly do. Hyenas won't. I think it's a Sabota lark, to be honest. It's got a little streaky belly. Or a lark, actually. Oof, it's a tough one. It's a Sabota lark, I think. Anyway, Jamie, hyenas do hunt impalas quite regularly. Whether they're successful or not is another story, but they often chase them, especially if the opportunity is good. In this big clearing, it's not so easy, but there are lots of baby impalas, lots of lambs, and lambs are not particularly, they don't have a lot of stamina. They're quite young still, so if hyenas chase them down, they probably could catch them. We see lots of newborn impalas that get caught by hyenas. Fully grown impala, it's quite a difficult thing to catch. They're very fast. Very fast creatures, so not super easy, but I suppose they could when the clans work together. In this area there's plenty of leopards, and along this northern border where we are right now, it's a good place for them to get carcasses, so there's no real need for them to hunt that much. Where they're focusing mostly on very old and weak individuals or sick individuals, stuff that's easier to catch. Well, they've got powerful jaws. They don't have sharp claws and extreme speed to catch these animals. So they'd have to find something that was relatively weak and immobile. Then they would have no problems. In certain parts of Africa, hyenas have actually become the dominant predator. In certain parts of Africa, like the Ngorongoro crater, for example, where lion numbers took a bit of a hit because of, I'm not sure what disease, but maybe canine distemper, but anyway, lion numbers fell, and the population of hyenas rose, and they've now become the dominant predator. So peaceful over here. I don't know if you can see it, Seb, in the picture, but do you see all those bugs flying around?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's a lot of insect activity over this clearing. A lot of these could be very small termites that are coming out during this nice humid weather. But anyway, it's a feast for many animals. But in the meantime, let's send you over to Lauren with a leopard.
Good morning, good morning. This is Miss Kalahari. A very busy leopard at this time in the morning. She's scent marking, she's mobile, and she's heading directly towards quarantine. What a great start to the morning. We went to the hyena den, but it was not active. So we came and found Miss Kalahari. My name is Lauren. I do have Simon on camera, and we're going to try our very best to keep up with Kalahari. But as you all know, it is not easy. And we're actually on Wahlberg's Nest Road, and the Wahlberg is up there calling. The female is not very happy that there's a leopard in the vicinity. Oh, what do you smell, dearest? Now, quarantine on Djuma is definitely the sort of heart of Kalahari's territory. It's not necessarily in the center, but it's definitely the heart. She smells something. Look at that twitchy tail. And that very brave ring-necked dove in the background. Oh no, it's not a ring-necked dove, sorry. It's a francolin, crested francolin. I would be careful if I were you, Franklin. Okay, let's get a little bit closer, Simon. Kalahari is mobile towards quarantine. I'm the only station here, so I'm just updating everyone that she is moving towards quarantine. We'll keep our distance, of course. I like it when Kalahari walks on the road. Makes life a little...
Especially in Tobeta is crossing into Peffershoek.
This Franklin is very, very brave this morning. And you see how she's got her tail up there? That's intentional. That's because she's on patrol. So she's trying to say to everyone, I come in peace. I'm raising my white flag. And I'm not going to kill you, I'm not hunting. But I think it's a false statement. Kalahari would if she could. Okay, we're going to try and keep up with Kalahari as much as possible this morning, and we're going to send you across to Kim and her rhino.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to And Beyond Pinda. We have got some white rhino for you this morning. Some very shiny white rhino who've obviously been already this morning wallowing in a mud wallow. We did come past a nice muddy pan earlier, and I think that that's probably where they've been. Welcome, and I'm Kim. Owen is behind camera today. And yeah, we just came around the corner, we found this guy. He's scent marking quite provocatively, and there's a female and a young calf just behind him.
Pete for ground, Pete.
He's keeping a little eye on us. making sure we're not getting too close, interrupting his very important scent marking. He's probably following this female around. We chatted quite a bit about white rhino yesterday because we saw quite a lot yesterday. And it's possible that he's just, he might be quite interested in mating with this female rhino. I haven't seen how old the calf is, but it's possible that he is, looking to mate with the cow. I was going to move forward, but I think that we should just keep an eye on him for now. It's quite cool how you can see how thick all the mud is on his back and how, as he's walked past bushes and Gina, so I don't know if you were watching yesterday, but we spoke quite a lot about scent marking and rhino middens yesterday, on yesterday's drive here at Pinda. So the purpose of scent marking is it's territorial and it's just to like assert dominance in an area. So this rhino bull is probably dominant in the area and he is just letting everybody know that. I'm going to move forward so we can see a bit better. So he will be doing that to assert dominance and to let all the females know that he's around. And if they are ready to mate, they should come in search of him. It'll usually be him doing the searching. There's the youngster. It's a young male. And he looks to be less than a year old. And the reason I say that is just because the horn at the back has not started growing yet, and usually at about the age of 1, that second horn starts to grow. So because there's no growth there yet, I think it's safe to assume that this little calf is less than a year old. You'll notice that the male isn't, he's kind of just coming out from behind a bush now, but he's not right up close and personal with this female. I think, as I said yesterday, it's been recorded that the females will mate about 3 months after giving birth to a baby rhino, but I think at the same time, I don't think that's a very common occurrence, and often if they've got quite a young calf, she'll actually chase the male away until she feels like she's ready to mate and be pregnant again. I think that we are going to leave these rhinos. We are actually searching for a leopard at the moment. There was one seen in the area last night, but for now we'll send you over to Lauren, who already has found one of those animals.
I'm not sure I do still have one. She's just gone off into the thicket here, so we're just letting the other vehicle head on in. I mean, we may follow suit. You'll have to bear with me here. I have a fear now following Kalahari in summer after getting stuck the other day. She was walking so lovely on the road there, posing so perfectly, but she has gone into the block, I'm afraid, so we're going to bunda bash our way in. She doesn't look particularly, her belly doesn't look empty, but we do know that she had that Impala lamb just 2 days ago. And knowing Kalahari, she enjoys the art of killing. I found a word that described her perfectly the other day. She's in her prime, she's stocking up, she's probably soon to be mating, soon to be having her own offspring. If she's not mated already, she was calling a lot not too long ago, which is sometimes a sign that a female is in estrus. Now, we're not going to get a view for some time, I'm afraid. She's way off ahead, and we've got another vehicle right in front of us, so we just need to follow behind, and hopefully she'll stop for us. Tom, it really depends when she last had food, how hungry she is she in her estrus cycle, is it cold, does she need more food to warm up, is she lactating? It all depends on her energy requirements, and we do know that Kalahari ate a few days ago. So technically speaking, she doesn't need to eat for a few days, but she's a mammal at the end of the day. And mammals do need to eat constantly because food is what fuels their metabolism, and metabolism is what maintains mammals' body temperature. We have a constant body temperature. We do not rely on the sun. Although we enjoy the sun and we get vitamin D, we don't rely on it to maintain our internal body temperature. That is done through our metabolism, and in order to fuel that, we need food. I think Kalahari kills every 2 to 3 days. It also depends your age, if you're a leopard, if you're a male, if you're a female. There's really no set time, but she can go a while. They're also not entirely water dependent. They will drink water, but it's not a necessarily everyday requirement. I don't think she's going to stop here. We're not going to get a view for quite some time, I'm afraid. I can see her right over there, but it's thick, it's summer, and there's another vehicle here, I'm afraid. So while I try to navigate, we're going to send you across to another live location.
Good morning and welcome to Tswalu. At the moment we're enjoying a sunrise and a view of Cape Eland and some gemsbok in the distance. My name is JP LaRue, and behind the camera we've got Craig. Just going to focus back onto Cape Eland before they move off. Generally they're quite skittish. For those that are a few that aren't familiar with Cape Eland, they're one of the largest antelope species within the world and can weigh approximately 1,100 kilograms at maximum weight. They're also closely related to the spiral-horned antelopes, and is one of the few members of the spiral-horned antelopes where both male and female actually has horns. One of the things... Good morning, Mary Ann. It's always a pleasure to see them, and they're really special animals. And what I do really like about them is that there's a very close link between them and the sand hunters. And quite often when it comes to rock art, and both in paintings and petroglyphs where we find pictures of them engraved in stone, the question was asked, why are they the most numerous depicted animal? For many years it was actually thought that the sand hunters used to hunt them more often than any other animal, which is not the fact. It actually plays a very important part in terms of their ceremonies and in their beliefs. For them, quite often when they do undergo a trance, they believe that they can transform into the eland, which allows them then to see areas where they can go and hunt and gather. quite often when we do find pictures of eland on rock art, we'll also notice that they will go in towards cracks and fissures, which is on the rock surface, which actually represents this ancestral spirit world, which they will enter. We also quite often find that San women used to rub the fat of the eland onto their body, as it's believed to have certain sexual potencies. We're just going to move a little bit forward and see if we can get a little bit of a better view on them. Good morning, Benji, and welcome to the show. They carry approximately some 9 months. One of the interesting things about eland was that they were actually exported into Kazakhstan many years ago. And it was a strategy to actually start breeding them in those areas and replace them with domesticated cattle. And the reason why is that domesticated cattle will only feed on grass, while the eland feeds both on leaf material as well as grass material, therefore can maintain a better body condition throughout the year without negative impact on the environment. Although these animals are incredibly large, they also still have the ability to jump very well. So we can often see them jumping over 2.5 meters in height. Good morning, Errol. Yes, they do. We often find them in large groups, and we also find them often in much larger groups when there is calves about, because for some reason the calves associate with one another, and then all the adults join. One of my favorite moments in Tswalu was actually with a group of these Cape eland and the wild dogs, which chased them one morning. It's just amazing to see how these animals can run incredibly fast to escape any form of predator, and how well they can jump. There's also a number of gemsbok that has just joined them to the back of the herd. Oh. Just going to move a little bit forward again and see if we can get a little bit of a better view. And be like, just like that. Good morning, David. When we do look at eland, they do sometimes rub the scent of a gland on top of the head onto the ground. However, they're not a territorial species, which means that they do not demarcate and defend a specific area. We see that they generally operate in home ranges, which is large areas which is neither defended or demarcated. When it comes to most species that has territories, we normally find that there are animals that have certain needs in terms of high energy needs. Territories is interesting as that all animals will have a home range, but not all animals will have a territory. The territory will then form a core part of that area, while species that have home ranges generally are less selective about what they eat. And quite often, if we think of it, that they need to cover quite large areas to support themselves in terms of their energy needs.
Right, welcome back to And Beyond Penda. We have found some lions. Sorry, I was just repositioning, so... Oh. Please just write a message. What's she saying? Oh. Yeah, we've just found some lions, as you can see. One's been chewing on something. You can see that one standing there is very, very fat. It's a young male. Oh yeah, see, that young female's just run in to take what's left. And even with cubs of this age being, oh, that's definitely a spine of something. So they're about 10 months old, these cubs, and even at this age, there will definitely be a more dominant... We're having a wee. There'll be a more dominant cub of all 5 of them, and even of the males. I think there are 3 males and 2 females. There'll even be a more dominant male of the 3 males. So this male, like I said, you can see he's extremely fat. So obviously made the most of whatever they ate. And that female probably hasn't had nearly as much as him. It's now taking advantage of him finally deciding that he's way too full. Jim, this pride is called Mountain Lodge, and quite interestingly, I mean Mountain Pride, you can actually see Mountain Lodge right in the background. So I said Mountain Lodge instead of Mountain Pride because I couldn't see it. But that is what they're named after. They tend to hang around the lodge, or Mountain Lodge, and that's why they're called Mountain Pride. But it's very, very cool how you can see this little female holding onto that spine. She's got it between her front paws. She's like holding on with the one and then just digging in with her teeth. I really don't think there's very much left on there, so it's probably just for taste more than anything else. It also looks, I'm wondering where the rest of the carcass is, but something makes me feel like this is possibly someone else's kill, as in not made by this pride. And the only reason I say that is because they've come from quite a different area, and that spine that's being chewed on looks at least a couple of days old. I don't think this pride would have finished that carcass to that state in just one night, even though it is quite a big pride with 5 cubs and 2 females. But I think that they might have stolen it from someone else, maybe a leopard, or maybe not even stolen it. It could just be left over from a leopard or another predator, and they've walked over from where they were, which isn't very far. I mean, it's less than a kilometre away. Debbie, yes, it's very common for lions to scavenge. They opportunists, so opportunists in terms of hunting, but also just in terms of what food they find. If they come across a carcass that's been killed by something else, there's absolutely no doubt that they will take advantage of that. In the wild, it's quite safe to assume that animals are trying to conserve their energy, like, at all times. So if they find a free meal, they're not going to give up that opportunity to feed without expending any energy on hunting. So yes, they definitely do scavenge. These lions, or these little cubs, are very fat. So I don't know if I might be wrong about this carcass being from a couple of days old or from someone else. I just feel like it looks very, very old, unless maybe one of the cubs brought the spine over from where they came from. But I don't think that's the case. They might have eaten something where they were and then have come over and found this also. This one's rolled onto its back, letting its stomach feel the nice breeze. They all look quite uncomfortable, these cubs, all panting away, trying to get as much oxygen into their system as possible so that they can digest what they've eaten and also just keep cool. That one on its back is just keeping its eyes. No, he's closed them. But you'll also notice that the females, the 2 lioness, are not as fat as the youngsters. And the reason for that is that they will often hunt and then allow the cubs to kind of have first dibs on the carcass, on whatever they've killed. Obviously their main purpose or their main aim at the moment is to raise these cubs to adulthood, and feeding them is at the forefront of that. I think we're going to spend a little bit more time with these lions. They're not all completely sleeping yet, but yeah, we're going to send you off to another live location for now. We'll see you a little bit later.
Wild Earth is launching our brand new Explorer program with an opportunity to win a very special Wild Earth expedition. The lucky winner will get a behind-the-scenes Wild Earth experience at the magnificent and beyond Ngala Tainted Safari Camp. The prize includes a 3-night stay for you and a friend with a chance to sleep out in the unique Ngala treehouse. Become a Wild Earth Explorer and stand a chance to win this and many other prizes. Terms and conditions apply.
Oh, it's going to be in trouble now. Oh, this is unbelievable stuff. Here comes a hippo in too. Go, Impala. There's a hippo coming in. I can't believe what we're seeing here. This is what we normally see in East Africa. It's all over. Hippo leaping at the crocodile now. Everything's gone underwater.
Expect the unexpected here on Wild Earth daily. An ever-increasing part of the global population is losing its connection with nature. Wild Earth is here to reduce people's stress and anxiety, allowing you to escape into nature even just for a few hours a day. However, Wild Earth is expensive to run, and we need help from you to keep this ship going. Wild Earth Explorers gives you the opportunity to be a part of a program that supports the sharing of nature with the world.
Hi, I'm Kyle, and I come to you live every day here from Tswalu Kalahari in South Africa. My favorite bird has to be the social weaver. The enormous nest that they create, their survival tactics to inhabit these harsh and unforgiving environments, and as well as their complex social arrangements is truly remarkable. And the interconnectedness with the ecosystem shows us that we are too.
Catch up with the guides daily here on Wild Earth.
So just as we were talking about, oh sweet, Mum's moving over to bond and get a bit of grooming from that one cub. The social dynamics of lions is really, really nice to watch. You can see that there's so much kind of intimate bonding going on. That female literally just kind of moved into the way of that cub, and now she's giving him a good grooming after she'd had a few licks herself from that cub. And lions have, yeah, I mean, like, their social dynamics are quite important. Sorry, Carol, no. There's no carcass that is too old for a lion to eat. I think that I'd say the oldest, or a carcass that's too old for a lion to eat would be skeleton, bones with no more meat on it. But lions will eat extremely rancid meat. I've witnessed them feeding off a carcass that there are literally waterfalls of maggots coming out of, and I couldn't even sit next to the carcass because of the smell. It was so repulsive, and those lions just had their faces like full in the inside of that disgusting rotting meat smell. So no, I don't think that there's any carcass that's too old for a lion. They'll eat the most rotten of meats. I think we are going to stick with these lions. It's quite nice to be with lions when it's still quite cool and they're not quite fast asleep yet. But we will send you over to Andrew and his hippos for now. Here we go, we've got the next cub coming.
Thanks again, Kim. So now we're stopping here at Beblisuk Dam. Since we were checking the northern boundary to the east, where we don't see another trek, cutting back of our male leopard, Tingana, yet. So it happened maybe he's still in Juma. But there was another tracks the guy now. This morning they have picked up and they were busy following up on that. And there also was a Kalamba that was also seen in that area where that last track of mail was heading into. So, but there's no update if they find him or not, which will be very much interesting to find out which one. Could be, Tingana, or could be Mura came back, or could be Mlawati that also came back. We're not sure for now. So we're going to keep checking. So we're right here at the Pusuk Dam. As you can see, Egyptian geese and was a visual of looks like one hippo in this dam as well. Where we sometimes see more than one hippo. It happens, so it's a lot of water around. So many of water hole around here where hippos sometimes they can be spread around quite a lot. So you find those that are others that they always here. Maybe they have left somewhere else. Maybe they're stuck with mail. Where this one managed to make its way back into this water hole. Or could be more, maybe they're on the other side because now we're on the western end of the dam. So there is an inlet on the other side where we can't see. Could be that they're hiding on the other side. Knowing that for sure. Hippos, they are also nocturnal. They come out at night, they eat grasses. Early in the morning, around 3 o'clock, 3:30, 4 o'clock, roughly, somewhere there. This is where they make their way back to the water hole. Spend a lot of time in the water during the course of the day. Maybe when it's cooler enough, they do also come out, graze around edge of the water, and they always return back to the water again. Where when it's too much hot, what I don't like about is that they have very sensitive skin where they get sunburned so much, and it's good when that happens, the water's nearby. Just went down there. I can also submit down for about 5 minutes sometimes. Take a breath and also go down. And doing that, they also sometimes touch the bottom and appear from the other side. And then do a lot of movement from inside the water. So you know what the heaviest weight of a hippo ever recorded. Roughly they weigh anything 2 ton, roughly somewhere there. 1,500 ton, 2 ton. Roughly that's for a male. Could be more than that. Some places, depend how healthy they are. Can weigh more than that sometimes. But that's really average weight for them. And some it says 3 ton. So, it could be that, sometimes they depend wherever they are. Healthy also it's count in these animals. Well, they're well fed and they're well, wherever they go, the grasses and all, it's all about, grazing land that's suitable for them. They get enough grasses, and these bulls, they can actually weigh that average. And it seems to be went down now. But I ever seen hippo that somehow we were walking in one of the dam that was very skittish, and we waited. We finally discovered that he spent underneath of water for a long time, more than 80 minutes, which was longer. Usually, 4.5 minutes, 5 minutes. It's long, 6 minutes sometimes. And they're a grazer, which they eat grass. And then, of course, for them to be able to move in and out of this area is that they have to make sure they get enough of food. Sometimes, most females are moving group, cohort of hippo. So you find maybe 8, 7 of them in the group, depend if it's so many of hippo in that water hole. 15, it's been recorded together, or more than that. And we're looking at it's called hippopotamus, the species. So they difference where now you got pygmy hippo, where we don't see that here. And those, when you look at their skin color, more dark than these, which we have here. They're vulnerable when they're outside of the water, especially with the lines. So I'm gonna be searching around here. Now I'm gonna be doing eastern border to the south, but I'm gonna be sending you over to Kim with her mobile line.
So as fat as this pride of lions are, they have got up and started to move, which is interesting because I feel they had quite a nice spot in the shade where they were. But here they are, moving around. I can't believe how fat they are. The cubs are... There's one right. Literally just walked under our back of our car. Yeah, move a little bit, lie down. I think they're literally just trying to look for somewhere to settle down for the day. No, we do not have white lion in this area. As far as I know, the only white lions that actually occur in the wild, so naturally, without any human intervention, are the white lions at Ngala. So part of the Kruger National Park. Apart from that, any white lions are bred. So no, we do not have white lions at Phinda, but yeah, they do. I'm sure you've seen them a couple of times if you watch quite often. There's one cub here who is very, very interested in our vehicle. He's walking right towards us. Oh, he's going to go. He's being a little bit overconfident. Testing the limits. But yeah, so the white lion, that genetic or that gene is obviously a recessive gene, and the lions in the Kruger National Park must have that gene, and every now and again it does come through. It pops out with a couple of white lions, and that's what we see, what you'll be seeing now when Ngala have their lions. But unfortunately that gene doesn't occur here on Phinda. But having said that, it's very, very possible that it may occur one day. With a fenced-off reserve, we have to monitor the gene pool of all the animal populations quite closely. So that means often swapping animals on and off of the reserve just to make sure that the genes are staying relatively varied and we don't get any inbred lions. So it's possible that we would swap some lions and that recessive gene might suddenly occur here on Phinda, but at the moment it doesn't. Or not that we know of anyway, it hasn't happened. You see how they've moved from a grassy patch to a sandy patch. And the sand is probably a bit cooler than the grass. As the morning goes on, the sun is getting hotter and hotter, and I think that they're just preparing for that, trying to find a nice cool spot where they're going to probably spend the whole day. With them being very fat as they are, they won't be doing much moving around. Brett, I think that lions grow to be I think the lifespan of a lion can be about like 12 to 15 years old, and in that lifespan I can't exactly say how many cubs they would have. It's quite difficult to say, but they can have litters of about up to probably no more, I wouldn't say more than 5 cubs. And they won't mate or breed again until their cubs are maybe 2 years old or a year and a half. So you can imagine every 2 years having probably less than 5 cubs at a time. So yeah, if you want to work that out, I'm not going to do maths. It's not my strong point, that's why I work in the bush. But yeah, I mean, it's quite a difficult estimate to work out, though, because I mean, sometimes they'll have 1 cub, sometimes they'll have 5, so it's tough to know how many they'll have in a lifetime. I think that we might try and reposition. I'm going to try and get a little bit closer, but while we do that, we'll send you over to Lauren.
What a wonderful sign of summer right here. And the species responsible for all the foam nests that we see, all these delicious, well, I don't know if they're delicious, but meringues that are popping up everywhere, sometimes in questionable locations. So I think maybe some of the individuals got a little bit confused sometimes. But this is a foam nest tree frog on a tree. Isn't that fascinating? And of course, they are more arboreal. They spend most of their life in the trees, and frogs being amphibians, amphibian actually means amphi, 2, bios, life. So the word amphibian comes from 2-phase life cycle, and that's of course because frogs start off as tadpoles, as we all know, and this is their juvenile phase, which is completely aquatic, and then mostly vegetarian. Then they turn into terrestrial carnivorous adults. So it's a complete metamorphosis, and that's what amphibian actually refers to. Now the metamorphosis that takes place in tadpoles in order to turn them into frogs, is under hormonal control. It's driven by hormones, not environmental cues or any other factors. It's driven by hormones that are located in the pituitary and the thyroid glands. The hormones are released from here, and it signals the body to start changing. So as a tadpole, they have tails, fins, oxygen extracting gills to get oxygen from their aquatic medium, and different mouth parts because they're vegetarians. And then, of course, they need to get rid of all of this to develop a skeleton with a vertebrae, muscles, tongue, eyelids, proper skin, not light skin that sort of survives in the pool of water, and a digestive tract that's capable of processing not only algae but a carnivorous diet. So that's a complete flip. The metamorphosis has got to undergo lots of changes to develop the to-be frog for a terrestrial arboreal lifestyle. Donna, it's the female. The female makes the foam. She uses her hind legs and whips up the secretions that are coming out of her. It's actually oviduct secretions, so they're sort of secreted from the ovarian area and released via her genitals, and she creates the foam herself by really rapidly moving her hind legs. And it's sort of a survival strategy to ensure that her tadpoles hatch and they're kept moist. You don't want them to dehydrate before they hatch and drop into the water. Because of the heat of summer, they could easily just dry out. But the foam, the meringue, if you like, ensures that they won't dry out. You'll really only see frogs in summer, and you'll hear them. They're very, very vocal. They use sounds to not only communicate with one another, but to find mates. If you think how small this little frog is in comparison to this huge, vast landscape, how is it going to find a mate? And they don't actually have a sort of ear, if you like, how we would think of an ear. They don't have any external structure that you can visibly see, but they do actually have a really well-developed inner ear. And they have to. What would be the point in vocalizing to find a mate if you can't hear your mate calling? So although you can't see it, they have a really well-developed inner ear. And the eardrum, if you like, that membrane is really, really large once you get a closer look to a frog's head, and it looks like a circle. And they have to have really good hearing in order to hear their mate over far, far and great distances. They must reproduce, and they've got to do it in summer. Rocky, you're saying this frog has turned to bark? Almost. Almost. It's very white. That's how I spotted it. It's almost glowing. Normally, they're a lot more camouflage than this, and they can really blend into the bark. But this one's very, very white right now. And I wonder if it's just because it's first thing in the morning. But yes, it's frozen in time. We can see you, little guy. I have a foam nest tree frog in my room, and I just cannot get it out. Every time I try to get it out, it just jumps back in again. And then I'll put it out, and it waits until I open my door and jumps back in once again. And you've got to try and avoid touching frogs. So even if you do see them, try to avoid using your fingers to touch them, because they've got really, really thin skin that's permeable. And this allows water and, well, the absorption of oxygen to flow through their skin. But what that does mean is if you have any sort of bacteria on your fingers or your hands, even if it's good bacteria, I'm not saying you're dirty, even if you've washed your hands and used soap, that's still chemicals. And because their skin is so permeable, once you touch them, anything that's on your hand or your fingertips they can absorb straight through their skin. So you've got to really try to avoid touching them. And if you do need to move a frog, then try to use a clean glass or a piece of paper or whatever you may have in order to get it out of your house rather than using your hands. You can do a lot of damage to frogs that way. But they can dry out really easily, especially these guys, because they live in the tree. There's no water around. You can't see a single drop of water. And that's why they have extremely slimy skin. And it's the mucus. They present a lot, they produce a lot of mucus from glands on their skin, and this helps keep them moist, prevents them from dehydrating and completely drying out in the summer temperatures. Okay, we're going to keep bumbling on, see what else we can find for you all. But I believe Kim already has some lions resting in the shade.
So one of the cubs has moved a bit closer to one of the mothers. And it gives a really nice comparison of the markings. So I'm sure that most of you know, as if he's listening to me, putting out his leg on show. But yes, I assume that most of our viewers will know about how the cubs tend to have much darker and more prominent markings, those spots that you can see on the legs, than the older or than adults. As they grow older, those markings slowly fade, and that's showcased very nicely there, where you can see that cub's legs up against the mother's legs. You can see those beautiful little spots up against the mother, and you can actually kind of see the faded spots on the mother's belly and legs. I don't think they ever completely disappear, but they definitely fade quite a lot. And that's got an old lioness that we're comparing with. She's probably like 7, 8 years old, possibly even 9. She's quite old. She's had a number of litters. And the other lioness on the other side is quite a bit younger than that. I'd say probably only 4 years old. I think this is her first litter. But of these 5 cubs, they won't all belong to one female. They actually are a mixture of 2 litters, and it's quite clever. But in prides of lions, they tend to come into estrus or be ready to mate at about the same time, and then they obviously have their cubs at around about the same time, and that's just so that they can raise their cubs as efficiently as possible. So here, this co-parenting thing is quite a successful setup, where the one may stay behind and suckle the cubs when they're a bit younger. I think they're not suckling anymore, but the one will stay behind looking after the cubs when they're much younger, and the other one will go off hunting, and once she's caught something, she'll come back, get the cubs and the other female, and they'll go off and feed on the carcass that she's hunted. So it's quite a successful way of raising cubs. So lions stay with their cubs, or cubs rather stay with their mothers. It varies. So with male lions, they'll stay with the pride until they're about 2 years old, at which point they get kicked out by mum and by the dominant male. And then females will normally stay with the pride for their whole life. Unless the pride gets a little bit too big, then they may break away and try and make their own pride. And that also happens at about 2 years old. After that, as a male, they are not quite big and strong enough yet to take over another pride. So they'd be nomadic and go around by themselves, or maybe with their brothers. If they're more than one male in a litter, then they'll stick together. And then at about 4 years old, they are fully grown, and they'll start looking for a pride of their own and start challenging any dominant males. Lioness, they, at the age of 2, if they go off to make their own pride, they can already start mating at about 2 years old, or just a little bit. Yeah, at about 2 years old, I guess, is when they can start mating, so they can start their own pride from as early as 2. But with these ones, there are 3 males. And they keep moving, they're quite restless this morning. That was quite cool. Nice little walk by. Oh, she's just laid down again. Yeah, they are quite restless today, but obviously the most restless one is the one who seems to be the skinniest. The rest are fat and lazy. But like I was saying, there's 3 male cubs and 2 females of this pride. So when the 2 male cubs get to 2 years old, they'll get kicked out of this pride and they'll be off on their own. And at 4 years old, they'll try and find their own pride. And I think it'll be quite a formidable trio, 3 male lions, which is quite cool. Imagine 3 dominant males moving around the area. I think that these lions look like they're quite happy to stay here. Gary, that's quite a difficult question to answer. Well, I suppose it's not difficult, it's just a bit more complex than just a yes or no. But lion populations, so lions have actually just gotten onto the ICUN red list of endangered animals. I think that they're not threatened, or I think it's vulnerable that they're on. But the problem with that is that there aren't very many areas in Africa that can accommodate lions. So even though the population, in the areas where they exist, the population is strong, but like I said, there aren't many places that can actually accommodate lions. So at the moment on Phinda, we are kind of at carrying capacity with our lions, so our population is very strong, and we swap lions on and off of the reserve with other lions or lion populations that are kind of at the same capacity as us, or other areas that are kind of at a lower carrying capacity. But unfortunately for lions, quite a lot of areas that can accommodate them are full up with lions. So yeah, it's quite a weird question, really, because although they're very, very successful breeders and successful hunters. They have gotten themselves onto that list, and I think that that's mainly just because of habitat loss in other areas in Africa where their populations are dwindling. But yeah, I think I'm quite happy to stay here with this pride of lions, but we're going to send you over to another live location for now.
Thanks, Kim. Good luck. Well, we now have here crested barbet, but they not actually static birds. They, flighty around. There was actually a pair of them where it looks like a male was going after the female. So they quite a lot of active, especially this time of the day where it started actually to get warmer a bit. And now we got a drongo, fork-tailed drongo, as you can see. These type of birds, they also fork-tailed drongo, they mainly follow bigger game. They follow elephants, they follow rhino. So what they do, they perch on branches, wait for the animal to move. And as the animal moves, the animal disturb insect for them to fly, catches it. And the fork-tailed drongo, it's actually a bird that is, you don't see many of a color in that. What you see, it's a pitch black, and the tail is kind of like a little fork. I think that's where the name comes from. There's a fork-tailed drongo. And most birds are all, bringing a lot of quite of us singing around here. Where it's probably because of, the warm that is taking places, and they're all just gonna be mobile about just before hot, where they go into thick trees or hide for that hot, and they will be already benefit from their own insect that is all available this morning. And I'm gonna do my search again, see what we get.
So what you're seeing there is a nice big elephant bull. It's feeding on zebra plains just opposite our eco-training camp. Very, very gently feeding on all the grasses in the shady patches underneath the trees and bushes, slowly making its way towards Ndlovu Dam, where I think it will head once it starts getting much warmer. This is a large elephant bull. It's in its prime, probably reaching 40 years if it's not there already. It's just got very wide tusks and a big, huge head. It's not in must though, like the other bull that we saw the other day. So I don't think this one is chasing after any of the herds, as you see. It's just by itself and feeding. That's not to say that it's not communicating with other elephants in the area. But right now it seems very content just to feed. And every now and again, you can see a few birds flying past that elephant, probably catching anything which is disturbed by it as it's feeding in the grass and moves along. These are mostly swifts and swallows, catching insects, as we saw this morning when we watched those impalas moving through impala plains. There were lots and lots of insects flying about because of this humid weather. A lot of insects are hatching and there's lots of mating and reproduction happening, so it's a perfect time for most animals to get as much as they can. Where the summer only lasts a few months and then it starts to get cold and dry again, and at that time it's very difficult for many of these animals to find all the nutrition that they need. Also just flapping its ears gently. It's starting to warm up. They're predicting the temperature might top 35, 36 degrees centigrade today, which is, nearly 100 degrees Fahrenheit. L'Oreal, elephants can be in must for varying amounts of time, but it's a yearly occurrence. generally speaking, or it's a cyclic occurrence, meaning that it happens regularly, and they can be in must for just a few days or weeks, all the way to maybe a month or more. And that's because the larger and more dominant they are, the longer they'll be in must, because there'll be no other elephants that can dominate them. So generally that is one of the reasons that elephants lose their must status, because they get pushed around and dominated by larger elephants, and then they come out of must. So in many places in the world where elephants are kept in zoos, for example, when they come into must, they have to be separated from the other elephants, because oftentimes there'll only be one male elephant, and it can get very aggressive. So they'll have to actually move it to another sort of area where it can't become aggressive. So obviously out here, where there are lots of different elephants, when they're in must, they'll go and follow herds, and sometimes 2 or 3 must bulls will start following the same herd, and then they might fight with each other, and then the biggest and strongest elephant will dominate the others and keep his must status. The other 2 will come out of must, and then he will get the mating opportunities. Generally speaking, not always the case. And when you see an elephant in must, as we see that one which has a collar on, actually, so it's one of the elephants that's being followed by researchers to see what it does. When we see that elephant, we give it space, because there's a good chance that it will want to show off its size and strength with its heightened testosterone level. But while we watch this elephant peacefully feeding, we'll send you over to Lauren with an eagle.
We have a batelier. We have 2 actually. I'm not sure if we can show you the other one. But this is the monogamous pair that we always find on Leadwood Road. I saw the female very recently on her nest. I don't know if there's a chick inside. It's very difficult to see sort of when it's that high up on the tree. But they definitely do have a nest around here. And I'm really, really hoping that we'll see a younger juvenile batelier fly in the skies very shortly. Now, this is the female we're looking at, and the male's just on the other side. They're probably just waiting until they can sort of start to ride the thermals. They're also quite heavy birds, with regards to the fact that they've got heavy bodies. Got a unique flight mechanism, long wings and short tail. So it gives them that wobbly appearance, as we all see when they're in the air. But just like vultures, just like any heavy bird, this is the male, any heavy eagle, they will wait. Thermals assist flight. It stops them having to flap as much, reduce the flappage, and saves them energy. They can soar high and ride the little pockets of air that are available to them. It's not just the vultures that do that. Vultures can actually save 3 times the amount of energy if they do ride the thermals. And that's exactly why they do it 3 times. That's a lot of energy saving. You can definitely see that's the female there. Now, the batelier is not actually a true eagle. I think it was said Lauren has an eagle. That's not necessarily the case. They're not a true eagle. They're a type of snake eagle. And you can immediately see that by picking out the features. But the reason they have this wobbly gait, this unique sort of flying technique, is to swoop low. They can get very, very close to the ground at quite a speed. So this reduces competition with all the other birds of prey out here. So by swooping low to the ground, they're able to get to carcasses first, or get to dead animals first, take whatever they can and fly out immediately to avoid any sort of competition from other birds of prey, including vultures, including tawny eagles, including Good morning. I think we should all do that in the morning when we wake up. But they do normally go for smaller carcasses. It's quite rare to see a batalier on a large carcass like an impala or even bigger. That's quite rare. They normally go for smaller carcasses and they try to get in there before other scavengers. So birds, doves, pigeons, small reptiles, small mammals, rodents, janets, mongoose. Tim, it's doing the shaky dance. I've never heard the shaky dance, but I think this batalier has just showed us exactly what the shaky dance is. You're right. Shake your tail feathers. They're just so beautiful. Come on, do your shaky dance again. The males flew off and the female's looking, where's he gone? Where did he go? He didn't like your dance. Okay, now we've had enough of the camera and we're going to turn our back to the camera. I actually might drive past that nest and see if we can have a look. They only lay one egg, so if there is a chick, it will just be one. But I see her sitting on the nest quite a lot, and it would be so lovely to see a really young batalier chick. We see immature and juvenile bataliers, but I've never seen a really small batalier chick. Okay, so I'm going to zoom around and check that nest, and we're going to send you across to Mike with his warthog.
So once again, our animals are being shy. We had a warthog. It's just moved behind this fallen knob thorn. It's still in the open area. Can you see it there, Seb? It's just popping out. It's got a big limp, this warthog. I don't know what happened, but it's limping on its front left leg. Perhaps in a fight with another male, because it is a male warthog. And we saw a couple of them behind us, so might have gotten injured in a fight. There's also lots and lots of other animals in the distance. You'll see now as Seb pans across there, you'll see lots of impalas, a few zebras as well, and plenty of birds flying back and forth. It's a very nice assemblage of animals, and remember, they don't fight with each other, they're not competing with each other, they're all eating slightly different food, and so there's no problems. It's better to be in big groups because it means there's many more eyes and ears to spot the danger. And with the weather that's coming over the next couple of days, a little bit of wind, a little bit of rain, there's going to be a lot more predators hunting, trying to catch these fresh impala lambs that are all over the place. It's actually incredible just to watch there. You can be transported back in time when you see a scene like this. The Swainson spurfowl squawking in the background, trying to establish its little territory. And my elephant has now come out from behind the tree that was hiding on, little weeping boa bean, still feeding there on the luscious grasses just behind this other fallen tree now. Just going to enjoy the sounds for a little moment. And there's a little, looks like a couple of starlings as well, just feeding in the grasses ahead of us. I don't know if that'll be possible to look at because they're very close to the vehicle, but beautiful iridescence with the sunlight behind. Well, speaking of birds, Lauren's got a couple of battaliers. Let's hope she's found the nest.
We found them on their nest, look. I think this is a male I can't see in the sunlight. Rebuilding the nest. Now, this is a different pair. I can't believe it. The other pair of battaliers are still behind us. This is not the monogamous pair that we first looked at. He's rebuilding the nest. I don't know if there is a chicken there. But they're definitely working hard at maintenance. How sweet. I think this is a male. You can tell just by that band of grey feathers at the bottom of the wing, but I really can't see from here. The sun is, very harsh this morning. Mark, I don't know, I'm afraid. I really don't know how long it takes them. This nest has always been here. So I have a funny feeling they're reusing it just like the Wahlbergs do. And they're just sort of maintaining it. There'll have been some weathering, some damage. I don't think this is a new nest. It's on Leadwood Road Firebreak, and it's always been here. So I have a funny feeling this pair are just reusing the same nest. But in general, it's made by the male. And you can see here, this is the male. So I don't know if maybe they're just getting ready. Maybe it's not actually time. There's not a chick yet, but I have seen the female in here regularly. Yes, I've just checked. The nests are frequently reused for a 3 to 5 year period. So this one's definitely been reused. And nests are made by the male, and they take approximately 6 weeks. So there you go. 6 weeks for a male to build a sort of structured, robust nest, but this is definitely not a new one. And of course, they have to use their beak to do everything. Intricately, delicately place the sticks to make your nest. A nest that can carry the female, her body weight, can carry him when he joins. There's a high level of parental care, and to carry and hold the eggs as well. It has to have a lot of sort of structural integrity, robust and strong. Oh, how lovely. I'm so glad we got to see this. So I'm going to keep going and see what else we can find this morning.
Have you been watching Wild Earth and dreamt of being right there on safari with one of the guides? Well, now you can. Wild Earth is offering you a chance to buy a ticket to dream. You or a friend can hop on board a live Wild Earth show and join our guide on safari. The ticket is redeemable at any of our locations, anytime in the future. Only a limited number of tickets are available, so don't wait. Get your ticket now and start dreaming. Terms and conditions apply.
My name is Ross, and I'm a field guide at and Beyond Punda Private Game Reserve. I love getting questions from guests on Wild Earth because I love sharing and learning information about nature with new people, and it also makes me feel like you're all joining me in real life. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, go to our live safari page and submit your question below our live feed.
This is Rusty. He's my favorite vehicle and we've been through all the good times here in the bush. Now, if you feel a connection to Djuma Game Reserve like I do, then we have a fantastic opportunity for you. You can have your name engraved on a brushed metal plaque just like this one, and we will attach it to Rusty so you can always be with us on safari in spirit. We will even send you a digital photograph once your plaque is mounted on Rusty. Spaces are limited, so grab your spot now.
Hello, boy. You are a monster. And he's coming right up to us. Hello, boy. Oh, settle down. Settle down. He is very, very close. He's pushing his trunk against the car. You can feel the car moving. Hey, 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 hey. Stop that.
Expect the unexpected here on Wild Earth daily.
Good morning and welcome back to Tswalu. At the moment things are going a little bit slow, but we managed to find some velvet mites. They're a rather interesting little group of arthropods. So arthropod is an organism with a number of jointed legs. So as you can see, hence the name velvet mite, they're covered with velvet fluff-like material. So these little guys I find particularly interesting. Most likely they're looking for a mate now that it's rained. And sometimes what you'll notice is that some of them will walk up to one another and start tapping one another with the legs. That's normally an indication for mating. We also find that the males will normally deposit sperm on objects and then lead a little trail from the sperm package towards where the female is, which will then follow that. We also find that the eggs that develop from that, once they hatch, those larvae will attach themselves quite often to species such as grasshoppers, which they will then parasitize. However, the adults are free-living, and they are predators mostly of termites. Although they look quite scary, they actually have no threat to humans at all. What we also find that they believe is that they are actually quite useful as biological control agents, especially in areas where there's large outbreaks of locusts. So quite often after the rains is finished, then they will immediately dig themselves back into the soil. Good morning, Brew. Welcome to the show. Yes, they are tiny. They seldom actually exceed more than 10 to 12 millimeters in length, and they're probably one of the most pretty of all the mite species. And meanwhile, we're going to link you back to Lauren, who is currently viewing some weavers.
We just thought we would give you some beautiful views of the weavers' harder work. They're fully back now. I've been waiting for this. They're back in full swing at this little pan. And you can see this one that Simon's given you a beautiful view of is just starting a nest. You see that? This is the very start, very busy. He's got a fresh piece of grass in his mouth and he's weaving. And that's how they start. They start off as just a small ring, and then they develop into the most wonderful structures, all woven by the bird's beak. It's remarkable. They can construct it in one day. It takes a lot of energy. Weave, fly. Oh, it's coming back. It's coming back. Oh, it's a different one. Weave, fly, go collect some grass, pluck it from the ground, bring it back, weave. Call, fly. It's constant just to get that nest constructed. And normally the fresher the nest, the more green it is, of course, because the grass will eventually just slowly start to die. Look how busy they all are. And they're doing it for the females. This one's back again, Simon. The one on the freshest. John, you're saying it looks like it's swinging on the swing. Yes, like in a play park. I used to love the swings when I was a child. I could not get enough of the swings. I used to try and do all sorts of tricks, which resulted in multiple injuries, but you know, when you're a kid, you don't think of stuff like that. But that's exactly what it looks like. Look at that, isn't that remarkable? They really put all their time and energy to these nests for the sole reason to attract a female. They're not monogamous weavers. The males will try and construct as many nests as they can to impress as many females as they can, which will result in more offspring that has their DNA, their bloodline. They're so precariously perched there, swinging. It can't be easy, and you're also trying to weave. Can you imagine us knitting on a swing? No thank you. This tree took a long time to come back to life. I waited and I waited and I waited, and already it's in full swing. And it's amazing when you come watch the females test out the nest. Sometimes they just don't like it. They think, no, I'm not impressed, for whatever reason, and they just abandon it. After that, the male can sometimes destroy it because he thinks, well, it's not good enough, I need to start again. Or sometimes the females can destroy it. If they really don't like the nest that's been constructed, they'll just tear it down. There's something a little sad about that. But although the males are trying to impress as many females, the females have also got to make the right choice for their offspring. I could watch this for hours. I do. I just sit here and I watch. You can see the foam nest in the background. Leopard lover, I'm actually not sure if they're fussy about the type of grass. I'm genuinely not sure about that one. To me, it all looks like the same type of grass, but I'm not sure whether they are fussy with regards to that. It's always fresh grass they use. They pluck it, they snip it with their beak. They don't pick up dead grass. But I'm not entirely sure if they are fussy. I mean, the most common ones we get here are the southern masked, the village, and the lesser masked. Sometimes you get the spectacles, but I've not seen them here. And I'm not sure if they each species prefers different types of grass. I'll need to look into that. It's a good question, though. And they're all competing with one another here. All the males. I think we've got a female just come in, Simon. See on the very right, a different coloured bird. I think it could possibly be a female coming in to see what's going on, what opportunities lie in wait for her. Yes, I think that was her. She's not making this very easy for you, is she, Simon? But they'll try it out. The females will go inside and they just disappear. There's quite a little cavern in there. It's a lot more spacious than you would think. And they disappear inside, and they're clearly making a decision. They're clearly testing it out. And why they're positioned above water? Predators. Really, what terrestrial predators could get to this nest. Other birds, possibly. But as for your lions, your leopards, your hyenas, any sort of predator that would go, mongoose that would go for small birds or birds' eggs, even monitor lizards would struggle. But of course they would have to swim. Your monitor lizards would have to swim, climb up the tree, and they could gain access. But mammalian predators, not so much. Okay, I'm going to sit here and enjoy this just a few moments longer, but we are going to send you back across to Kim and her lions.
So, it's quite cool because these lions, even though it's getting later in the morning and it's getting warmer and warmer and they are very fat, all those factors tell us that they should be very inactive, but they did just give chase to some zebras that walked past unsuspectingly. So, yeah, it's quite exciting. I think the females are still pretty interested in hunting. The cubs are fat as anything, but be involved in the hunting at this stage anyway. They're still too young. But they have gone very deep into a bush. I think they have been seeking out a nice shady spot where they'll spend the day. But I do not doubt that if a herd of impala or another herd of zebra or wildebeest or anything that they would be interested in hunting, if that moved past the bush that they've decided to spend the day in, I think that they might take the opportunity and try and hunt again. I think those zebras just walked past and didn't even realize that there were lions here. They managed to get away. I think the female wasn't quite prepared for them walking past. Probably surprised one another. Levi, so these cubs are about 10 months old. But in this pride overall, there are 4 lionesses, 2 of who we can see here with these 5 cubs, and then 2 others, one of which has a set of new cubs, 4 new cubs who are all quite young. They are only about 3 months old. So the lions that we're viewing at the moment is just the 2 lionesses and the 5 cubs, but there are a few more members of the pride, and they have got cubs, quite young cubs. They're only about 3 months old. Very little, very fluffy, and very sweet. Not moving around very much, so they're often in the just staying in the same area close to their den site, nice and safe from other predators. I'm still very interested in these lions being so active. There's one there. See how fat he is. I mean, you'd think that he'd just want to lie down and not be doing anything. I mean, he came from quite far away. He's having been doing a bit of exploring. But like I've said, these lions are keeping relatively active, and I think that I'm going to keep with them pretty much most of the morning until they look like they are completely done with moving around. But we're going to send you over to JP and his bird.
Good morning and welcome back to Tswalu. At the moment we are looking at a Jacobin cuckoo. This is an all-black form, which is not as oftenly encountered as the typical black and white form that we do find in most parts of the country. So Jacobin cuckoos, as the name cuckoo implies, as most of you know, are all brood parasites, and they lay their eggs in the nest of other birds. A few moments ago, there was a little dark-capped bulbul, African red-eyed bulbul, my apologies, that was sitting quite close by to it, which is one of the host species. Interestingly enough, a southern fiscal also showed interest to come and see what the bird is up to. So what they would normally do is they will lay their eggs in the nest of their host, and then the host bird will raise the young for them, while they go and exploit another African red-eyed bulbul. It's just flown off. We'll see if he comes back. So in general, if we do look at cuckoos, they've got quite a wide range of different strategies that they will use. Some species of cuckoos will evict the chick and the egg out of their nest, and then ensure that all the resources go straight to it. Other species will grow up with the host, while some species will eventually become so big that they actually will smother the host's chick. We also find that in general cuckoos have quite hard shells which they will lay, shelled eggs that they lay, and sometimes the incubation already starts within the body, so that it has a head start when it comes to being laid and can hatch before that of the host's chicks. We also find that some cuckoo species have eggs which are specifically adapted in terms of color to match that of their host, while other species which are less discriminatory and can't tell the difference between their own egg and that of a cuckoo egg will have colored eggs that don't match the same coloration pattern. Sometimes, especially with dark-capped bulbuls and African red-eyed bulbul, they're not as smart as in terms of discriminating against their own eggs and that of the cuckoo. However, when it comes to species such as Duderik's cuckoo, there we often find that the eggs will match precisely that of the host. Another interesting strategy, what we find in some of the other brood parasites in South Africa, is that even the coloration pattern of the gape fits that of the host species, so to make sure that they are going to get fed. And meanwhile, we're going to hand you over to Andrew, who is currently viewing some impalas.
Thanks, JP. Yeah, indeed, we got an impala here on the road. When we get here, they were looking away into that bush line where it's quite thicket, I think, and then we all of a sudden see one individual female come from that direction. It means maybe they're all split group over here, where the other one, maybe they're in a thicket, and this is all about reunite again. And they are one of the antelope, since they stay in a group. But also now you see the wind is here, it's picking up a little bit. So for them to be able to make sure it's safer, they gotta be in at least very open, so that they can see who's coming in time before it got any closer to them. Here we also see all a mix of a young male, which they actually born last year. We can see these horns already straight up and not even a twisted yet up. And also there is quite a few bigger male in this group here, where it's actually normal for such a high rim. I think it's actually small high rim here, where usually dominated by one male, but because of the all breeding season, it has take place and all of the females are already taking care of their young one. It's no need anymore for a male. If he is strictly enough, he wouldn't let other males come in here. But if he wants, he would be brave enough to welcome males, or those males that are sometimes, not dominating in bunch of group. They're more likely. Stefan, so you want to know the typical herd of impalas or rank of impala size from anything from 15 up to 60, possibly it's recorded 100 in the high rim, where then you see a lot of young males, a lot of young females, a lot of bigger females, but then more likely to be controlled by one dominant male. So that, since actually they are seasonal breeder, where during a breeding season or rutting season, which is beginning of winter, it's a lot of a challenge for that single individual male that dominating that high rim. So he's got a lot of a challenge from those outstanding males are out there, where some of them will actually, one of them approach him and challenge him for a fight. Where fight sometimes it's, whoever get out, then it means that he lost the fight and then he lost the high rim. So the dominate change from there, and another male take over, carrying on with reproducing, and then again another male will come in. Eventually, in one rutting season, maybe 5 different males have interfered on breeding as well, so they have involved. So, but what we've seen here, I can't count how many, but actually it's a small high rim of impalas. So, if it was a danger that they have seen, they would actually, make a call, immediately get out of the area. So I'm going to search around here again, see if we find anything else. I'm going to be sending you to JP with the squirrels.
Maybe on one of the others that are busy grooming. Good morning and welcome back again to Tswalu. We've just been watching a group of ground squirrels over here, and all of them are scratching themselves like crazy and trying to bite the hard to reach areas. It seems that they might be sharing their burrow system with somebody that they don't really want to. And it's possible that it might be fleas or lice that is bothering them. So quite a few animal species that do have burrow systems eventually will have their houses filled with unwanted visitors such as fleas. These also include species like hyenas. And quite often what we do notice, once there's too many parasites in terms of fleas in the nest or in the den, well, they eventually end off moving away from the area and find another burrow system, and hopefully come back a little bit later when they are rid of their fleas. That's actually the first time that I have ever seen them that they scratch themselves so intensely. Normally they're more focused on feeding. Good morning, Flint, and welcome to the show. There's a number of animals that will prey on them. One of these are Cape Cobra and a host of bird species. I've once even seen one of these being caught by a southern pale chanting goshawk. Quite often we also do find that puff adders enter the same burrow system, which they are living in search of these little rodents. They are also taken by black-backed jackals, and I'm sure that they will fall prey to a number of the smaller cat species if they can catch them.
Thank you, JP. So I decided to wait a bit here because they're on the road. I don't want to disturb them. And I'm sure they will finally move away from the road for us. And then is that, on the other side is too bushy and the other side is too bushes as well. But also, it's always so important sometimes. Spend much time with these impalas. Sometimes where they're mainly hunted by leopard. Where leopard, they're sneaky animals that you pass a lot of impalas, then they actually at the same time there is a leopard around them, and then it's going to be very difficult to know if they haven't, or you haven't seen any tracks, or you haven't to see or experience any behavior of this animal, what they're doing, what they maybe alarm calling, or they're showing any threat, running around, or they're now looking around too much. Of course, always believe that wherever they are, we believe then maybe everything is okay, but maybe it's not okay. Because these predators, they don't want to be spotted when they hunt. So that's why they crawl down. Sometimes they spend a lot of their time focusing on a target, and that can sometimes take half an hour before the target become visible or succeed on what they're targeting on. So I'm gonna now maybe take another road, see if I can get around or search what they could be seen around here.
I have found my spirit animal right here at Chitwa Dam. Just in the corner here, next to the lodge, actually, we found a lone buffalo soldier. Just chilling. I can't think of any other word to describe what this buffalo's doing. I don't see a single other buffalo around or hear them. Herds of buffalo can be very, very noisy. And I think this could be an old Daga boy, an old muddy boy, and he's wallowing. He could be injured, he could be sore. And he's just wallowing while chewing the cud. And that's actually where the term Daga boy comes from. They get old, and especially the males, they get a little bit sore, a little bit painful, and they tend to wallow a lot in mud. It feels good on their dry skin. Gets rid of any itchies and scratchies and parasites. And of course it helps cool them down. I think today is going to be super, super hot. And the Daga boy term normally refers to, it's a nickname, of course, it's a Zulu word, but it normally refers to older bulls that have passed their reproductive peak. So over 10 years old. They're no longer really sort of focused on reproduction and being dominant and looking for the females. They've passed that peak and they just enjoy wallowing. I think this could be a Daga boy. I almost drove past him. He just blends in here. Tando, you're saying, wow, that is exciting. I think I got that comment right. I'll let Gwen repeat it. Oh, what a unique sighting. I was going to say, it's possibly not exciting, but yes, you're right. What a unique sighting. Just alone at the edges of Chitwa Dam. Nestled into the shade, underside of the body in the bottom, in the water. It must be really nice and cool, shallow. I almost drove past it. I was so busy looking for the heron. I was trying to find you the little heron here that's regularly fishing at this side of the dam. Now, often the old Daga boys will have skin diseases. It's very common for them to have skin diseases. It's very common for them to have battle wounds and scars and just aches and pains. And that's exactly what the water and the mud does. Not only is it cooling this individual down, but it's probably soothing his skin, soothing his muscles, and just generally feels good. Not only that, you can see he's chewing the cud. The food is everywhere. He can chill and eat at the same time. He's chillaxing with his food all around him. That's exactly why he's chosen that spot. The food around water holes, like the grass that you can see right now, is said to be a lot softer and a lot more palatable. So still nutritious, but it's easy for them to chew and digest the vegetation that's around water holes. But although it looks like a great life, and I'm sure it is, he lacks the protection of the herd now. I can't see any other Daga boys, I can't see any other buffalo, and he's lacking the protection of others, and he makes him a real easy target for the likes of lions. So, all of this in consideration, the fact that he's a little bit sore, a little bit achy, he's old, and he's not got protection, that's exactly why Daga boys are said to be quite dangerous, quite temperamental. They can be very, very aggressive, and it's for those exact reasons. He's probably in a little bit of... Oh my goodness. That was rather violent. He's probably in a little bit of pain, and he's also out here on his own. He knows that he's a prime sort of picking for predators. So talking of the buffalo's predators, we're going to send you across to Kim, who's sitting with them.
So, as predicted, these lions have become quite inactive. They're settling down as it gets hotter and hotter here in Phinda. I think it's going to be an extremely hot day. And I think that they are preparing for that, getting nice and deep into this shade. We can actually only see 3 of the cubs now. The others have gone so deep into this thicket in front of us that we actually... Yeah, we can't see even one little patch of fur. And I think that you've come back to us just in time to see the last 3 also moving off into, well, first urinating and then maybe moving off into the bush. I find it so hilarious how lions don't even, she's hardly changed her position. She just kind of walks over and then starts weeing. She doesn't bend down or squat or anything. Yeah, there she goes, coming to join the rest in this very thick bush in front of us. RJ, well, I actually do know where the males are because I went searching for them yesterday and they're miles away. So yeah, there's 2 males that are dominant over this pride, but as dominant males, their main job is to make sure there aren't any other males in the area. There aren't any other males coming into their territory. So they aren't with the pride very often. They generally will actually be quite separate from the pride, just making sure that their territory is secure. Then they'll visit the pride every now and again to check that if any of the females are ready to mate, may have a few meals with the family, and then they'll head off again on their territorial patrols. So their main goal as male lions is just making sure no other male lions are taking over their job. But you can see that they've gone right deep in to this thicket in front of us. And I think that is where they are probably going to stay for the day. I think even if they hear something coming past, they may attempt to hunt it. But yeah, I very much think that is where they are staying for the day. You can just hear them moving around in there. I'm amazed that they even have space to lie down. It's such a thick thicket. There's still one outside who may... So with the colour of lions, their camouflage is mainly suited to stalking through dry grasslands or kind of arid areas. You can see that they're similar colour to sand and to dry grass. So, yeah, I guess them crawling under a bush, they could look like a pile of sand or a tuft of grass. But I think that even if you and I climbed in, or you or anyone climbed in there, even with a luminous shirt on, it's so thick that I don't think that you'd see them anyway. And I think that what's concealing them here is just the thickness of this thicket rather than the colour of their coat. I do think that we have spent quite a lot of time with these lions this morning. And like I said, I don't think that they're going to be doing much more. I think that they've found their happy space for the day where they're going to be kept nice and cool. And I think they're going to stay there. I think this last one that's outside is going to move in relatively soon. And then that will be that for the day. I think we're going to move on from these lions in a moment. We may start checking some watering holes as it gets hotter. I think most of the animals will be ducking for cover now with this heat. It's a very, very still morning. There's not much wind to keep us cool. Just repositioning. And just hear a little movement every now and again of a lion inside this thicket. All right, well, I think we're going to leave these lions now. I think they've put on quite a show for us this morning, and I think it's the end of that. We're going to move on, see what else is out there, but we'll send you over to Andrew, who's looking for a leopard.
Thanks, Kim. So we now have left impalas there. So we're checking the western now sector, where the last update, I know there is in Kohoma thinking we cannot go to that area where they are right now, difference property. But the last update is that if they ever come east, they will probably come to us, Juma. So then I'm going to be working in this area. But, you know, they might sometimes just lie flat. But if they ever move to us, I'm going to make sure I'm in an area where I'm close by to see what is going to be happening. And then the other guys are also still following up on that male leopard that walked across quarantine this morning, but there's no joy still. So it happened that he also maybe just into the bush. The last tracks was somewhere just before Twin Dam. And looks like he came from the west, looks like it. Track lead from there, across the quarantine. And it could happen that maybe they didn't actually. Amanda? So you want to know how long it takes to track animal? It depends sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't take long. So animal, they move sometimes. You're tracking animal that is actually continuously moving. That could sometimes take maybe enough time for you to track it. Sometimes you lost a track, you go down or come out of the vehicle trying to search for the tracks, the animal is moving. So sometimes can take a long time. But if that animal that you're tracking, maybe it's just stationary, then it's quicker sometimes. It's just, track a little bit, and then the minute you look, it's maybe on a shed or feeding. But it also depends what animals you're tracking. So if cats, you know for sure if it's early in the morning, they would be doing a lot of the activity because it's still quite a good condition for them. Temperature still allows them to carry on, move. But if it's a kind of like a very hot day, that sometimes they may delay, which you have kind of like trust that you may maybe find them not far from you because it's hot or the tracks are fresh. So tracks are fresh, or they could be moving too fast due to the job they're doing. Cats, they also have a lot of work. Set the territory boundaries. When they're actually doing that, they're doing that while they're moving. They don't stop quite often, and they seem to use roads a lot of time because these roads are one of these boundaries between another cat and himself or herself. But then if it's an elephant, where we know they all stand, feed, move, we all check what the tracks like. Looks like if they are just showing that their tracks are leading away, not sign of feeding around, breaking branches, then you know they're gone. So I'm gonna be sending you over to a giraffe while I'm doing a bit of a search around here.
A giraffe. It's been a few days since I've came across one. This is a male, a really large male, and I don't know how easy it is to see because of this harsh sunlight, but he's very, very dark. It's really, really dark in color, those thermal patches. He's not light. And it's no longer sort of the rule of thumb that the giraffes darken as they get older. Darker males, has been recently found, are said to be more solitary. You won't really find the darker males around other males or around the sort of not so tight, loose herds. Of course, when he's seeking a female, absolutely, but the darker males are said to be more solitary and less social. Whereas the lighter males or the lighter coloured counterparts are said to be a lot more social and will aggregate, if you like. So this study, it was released in 2019, so it's fairly new, actually suggests that the colour of a male giraffe's spots, or patches, shall I say, strongly relates to their patterns of social association rather than age that we always thought. So when you look at a male and you see, wow, he's really, really dark in colour, almost black, really dark in colour, you'll know that he's less social. And what does that mean? Well, it normally means that he's actually more dominant. He'll be the dominant bull in the area. Now, some giraffes do darken as they age. Yes, they absolutely will. As they get older, they'll start to get a little bit darker. But it's not sort of a direct... Wow. I apologise if that hurt your ears as much as it hurt mine. But yes, it's not sort of a direct correlation to age. You will find that some males absolutely never darken, no matter how old they get. And you can sometimes find that as a bull gets older, he'll lose pigmentation and he'll get lighter. So it's not the general rule of thumb that we once thought. It can be more closely linked to physical condition, status, and signalling to others. Quentin, they are absolutely not horns. Definitely not horns. They are ossicones. And these ossicones they ossify as the giraffe gets older. So their When the giraffe is first born, they are quite soft. They're made from cartilage. And this is to assist with birth. Because imagine being a mother and having to give birth to sharp ossicones. So they lie flat on the head. And as soon as the calf is born, they'll become erect and they'll slowly start to ossify. And the purpose generally is used by the males. So when they're clubbing one another or fighting, it can get really, really violent. And this is striving for dominance. And what they'll do is they'll swing their neck at incredible rates and they'll slam the ossicones into one another, into their chest, into their rib cage, into their neck. And I know it sounds rather violent. It is rather violent. I really don't enjoy watching giraffes fight like that. And that's exactly what the ossicones or girafficones are for, but they're not horns. They're present in the embryo though, the ossicones. They're just made of a different material and in a different position. I'll go forward for you, Simon. There you go. What is it? You want to go back? Okay. Here. Okay, so you can see his neck's bent over at a 90-degree angle here. So whatever it is he's eating, I cannot see, is obviously very delicious. So that theory of necks being long so that they can reach the vegetation on the top of the trees is sort of debunked. They love to bend down to get delicious food. And they also love to bend down to drink water, which is exactly what we're going to send you across to.
So, talking about the ossicones of a giraffe, here we've got a young male giraffe who hasn't been using the horns on his head or the ossicones often enough yet to rub all the hairs off. So you can see it's starting to get the baldness on the top there, but still quite a lot of fur around the edges. So this young giraffe is not yet at prime fighting age to start having to fight for females, but it's actually looking to have a drink. It's been trying from a number of different angles. It doesn't seem to be getting it quite right, but maybe third time's the charm. Let's see. Oh yeah, there you go. You can really see the water being sucked into its mouth and all the way up its very long neck. And they don't usually drink for very long before they have to lift their heads up, have a bit of a look around. It's such a difficult thing to do. I don't think they can breathe very easily as well whilst they're drinking like that. So they have to kind of come up, have a little bit of a few breaths, look around for any danger, then go back down and drink some more. There's plenty of giraffes around and plenty of impalas as well. So I think it's feeling pretty safe at the moment. It'll probably try and drink a little bit more. It's a big animal. It has to drink quite a lot in order to make sure that its body functions correctly. Dehydration is one of the biggest killers of anything in Africa, and it's very hot today, so it needs to keep hydrated a lot. Faith certainly is. I don't know, I've never really tried to drink like that, but I shall at some point in my life, I'm sure, and I'm sure that it will be quite uncomfortable. But for a giraffe, it's the only way it can drink. Its neck is just too long to easily be able to get to that water without bending its legs are too long for it to easily be able to get to the water without having to bend its knees and lean forward like that. I'm surprised to see that it seems to be finished with drinking already. It tried to drink a couple of times before, but didn't really get much of a mouthful. Perhaps it wants to try again a bit later when we're not scrutinizing it and critiquing its performance. And there's a number of young males here. It's actually walking towards another young male of a similar age. I wonder if these are all joining together just for some sparring or some practice fighting. None of them seem old enough to really fight for dominance of any females. There it goes, disappearing into the Tamboti thicket, where there's plenty of shade, especially when it's getting hot like this. And still the giraffes are eating the Tamboti, which surprises me. With so much other very good, nutritious leaves about, that it would eat something that's quite toxic to most animals is quite interesting. Oh, and when you look closely at this giraffe's ossicones, you can actually see there's a bit of blood on the left one. So it certainly has been fighting recently. It's got a bit of an injury on its ossicone up there. Nothing too serious, just a minor flesh wound. And when these things fight properly, these giraffes, they can injure each other terribly and sometimes even kill each other. So that is really something it has to get used to. Well, next we're going to send you off to something with a beautiful flower.
Good morning and welcome back to Tswalu. We're still driving around seeing what we can have a look at. At the moment we discovered one of these little beautiful flowers over here. These little flowers belong to a genus which is known as Ipomoea. They're more commonly referred to as morning glories. So we were talking about quite a few of the things lately about how you can survive out here and where you can find food and water. So coming back, this little plant actually produces a very large tuber that's under the ground, which holds a large amount of water as well as can be eaten. What not a lot of people actually do know is that Ipomoeas are the same genus as which a sweet potato belongs to. And the sweet potato that's been introduced into South Africa is known as Ipomoea botata. And it can be, and this morning glory's root can also be prepared in a very similar way. So we've also been looking at a few other things that we found. Right to the back of us, there's a number of camelthorn acacias. And if we look at their pods with the ear-shaped structures, hence the name Acacia aeroloba, we can also use these seeds and roast them and turn them into a coffee, or use them as a substitute to a coffee. However, I doubt that they do have actually any form of caffeine in them. What not a lot of people actually know is that coffee actually originates from Africa, especially in terms of Arabica, and it was discovered in Ethiopia. Apparently, it was discovered by a young herder who was looking after his cattle at that moment and found that the goats was feeding on the seeds and was quite energized afterwards. Something else that we also have over here, the fruits of the brandy bush, also known as a velvet raisin. Just to show you, these are ripe at the moment. We mentioned them in an earlier show. These are often then mixed by the Tswana people with brown locust, which becomes quite a which is seen as a delicacy in their culture. And fruits are actually quite good. As also mentioned, these are quite often made into quite a potent alcohol, hence the name brandy bush. So generally, as a good indicator, if you would like to determine if something is edible or not edible, it's sometimes best to look at species like monkeys. However, when it comes to baboons and quite a few of the bird species, the things that they can eat is generally quite toxic. These are probably one of my favorite little fruits in the bush. Good morning, Numsa. To answer your question, that's quite a tricky one, but there's quite a few that I can think of. The brandy bush is one of them. The morning glory is another. And then also, quite often the roots of many of the plant species is also edible. You can dig these up and you can either gain water from them or you can turn them into a porridge. So there's still one or two of the trees that I would like to mention or discuss at a later stage, which I'll tell you a little bit more about how you can make porridge from them. We're going to continue from here on and see what else we can go and find for the morning. In the meanwhile, we're handing you back to Lauren.
Now I'm almost at Treehouse Dam. We're going to quickly check that water hole, and then I'm going to go back in and see if we can relocate Kalahari. Now if she's deep in that drainage, unfortunately, it's just a no-go. It's not possible. It's very, very steep. It's not possible for our car to get in. But she may have moved, she may have repositioned, you know, Kalahari. She maybe is after a different patch of shade. Or, you know, just curious about what's around her. So we'll quickly check out Treehouse, and then we'll go back and see if we can locate our princess. Some of you asked me directly about how come we are off-roading. We follow the instructions of the Juma guides, so we follow Rickson and Michelle. They are the ones that decide whether we can off-road or not. So the Mulwati is still a no-go. I'm missing it. I'm missing cruising the Mulwati, but it's still too waterlogged. But the high up areas, at the sort of top of the Katina, the water drains down. So we can still off-road there. We've been given the permission to off-road there now because a lot of areas have dried out. But, for example, the seep lines and the drainage lines, no. We would not off-road there because water seeps all the way down and it collects at the bottom. So it's still not advisable to off-road in those type of areas. So some areas we can, some areas we can. It really, really depends on where we are on the reserve. Treehouse Dam is rather empty, but Simon will give you a little view of it. Lolly, there's differences between dams and pans and puddles and water holes, but dams, we have Gowrie Dam, we have Buffelshoek Dam, Treehouse Dam and Twin Dams. That's the main dams on Juma, but of course we now traverse other properties. We also traverse Simbambili, we traverse Chitwa, Torchwood and Buffelshoek, and they all have dams of their own. But on Juma, there's 4, and this one is Treehouse Dam, and they're all incredibly full. But the predators or even the antelope species don't need to come to the big dams to drink anymore. There's water holes, there's puddles, there's areas that have just collected water through all the rains. So basically water is everywhere. Whereas in winter, when it all dries up and the water bodies lose their volume and start to shrink, you'll find everything concentrates in the one area. Okay, so there's not much here. I think we're going to bumble and go back for Kalahari. The only thing that's going to work against us right now is the heat. Okay, so wish me luck and hopefully we will get another view of our princess.
My favorite animal is a leopard. Purely because I just think they are just the epitome of feline grace and power, and the way they can move about in any environment and remain hidden until they want to be seen, I just find incredibly intoxicating, and they're amazingly beautiful.
Catch up with the guides daily here on Wild Earth. Join our Explorers program so we can keep on sharing nature with the world. For a monthly subscription, you will have the opportunity to win fantastic Wild Earth expeditions, have access to an animal identification app, receive weekly highlights from our shows, and much more. All the money will go to keeping these live safaris on air, which in turn connects a global population with nature.
My name is James Hendry, and I work here at Juma Private Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands on the western fringes of the Greater Kruger National Park. My favorite part of getting questions from viewers is that we get to have long and varied discussions about all sorts of different aspects of nature. Because our audience comes from all over the world, it's very special to have different perspectives from everywhere. If you want to submit a question on Wild Earth, you need to register on our website. Once registered, go to the Live Safari page and submit your question beneath the live feed.
Welcome to my car. This is Wendy, and she's my favorite. She would love to have your name engraved on her so you can be with her every single time she goes on a safari here in Djuma. If you become a Wild Earth Explorer, you will have the opportunity to buy an engraved tag which we will attach to her. We will make sure to send you a digital picture to show you exactly where you are sitting on her. You will have front row seat in every single sighting.
Okay, welcome back, you guys. We had a very, very cute little, very young giraffe calf, but they're not playing game, and we are just trying to reposition so that we can see them a bit better. They'll be around this corner here. It's a mother and her youngster. There it is. Okay, I'm just gonna keep going back. Oops. Not very sure of us still. You see, Mum's very, very chilled, but that young calf is just checking us out, not quite sure whether we are something that needs to be worried about or not. But you can see the size comparison with Mum in the background and how tiny that young one is. I think that's quite a new calf, probably barely a month, I'd say. Well, in fact, less than, because it's still got an umbilical cord. But giraffe are the mammal that keeps the umbilical cord for the longest out of all mammals. You can keep it for a couple of weeks. So I would say that this young giraffe is within 2 weeks old. So you can see if it goes side on, yeah, it's still got that umbilical cord still quite long. Hasn't fallen off yet. Looks like a young male. Most animals, the fathers are uninvolved. So most of the time, the job of the male is just to mate. Are you guys answering?
Oh, apologies everyone. I'm in the middle of communicating with Aubrey about Kalamba. It's okay, Simon. We're just going to have to pull over here, I'm afraid, and let the vehicle pass. Oops, I stalled. Hi, Ops. No luck. Okay, I'll go around this way. Alrighty. So apparently she's not in the drainage, which is exactly what I expected. But we'll loop round and we'll see if we can find her. Simon can show you this drainage. It's in winter, it's possible. Simon, give them a little view of how thick it is. In the winter, it's really possible to drive through, but in summer, look at that, just look at that. It's so thick, and that's the sort of top part of the drainage you're looking at. It drops down to a really, really steep drop inside. And of course, that's where our princess decided to go. Okay, I'm going to do my very best here. Aubrey's going that way. I'm going to go this way. Wish us luck, but for now, we're going to send you back to Kim and her giraffe.
We've gotten a little bit closer to these giraffe, and you can really see the size comparison now that they're standing nice and close together. But that youngster is so cute. See, a little bit unsure of us, but how gorgeous is his tiny little head. It looks so strange on the end of that neck. It looks too small for his body. Still got a bit of growing to do, growing into himself. But he's very, very sweet. His face is all kind of scrunched up still. And you can see that he's realizing from Mum that he doesn't need to be too worried about us. Matt, I haven't really heard giraffe making noises before. I think that they make quite a bit of snorting and huffing and puffing when they are fighting. But apart from that, they are quite silent creatures. Quite a pretty scene just watching them walk off. You can see Mum's very, very uninterested in us. Her ears aren't even turned back towards us. She's just keeping an eye on her surroundings apart from us. Whereas that little youngster still, there he is, looking at us. He's still just making sure that we aren't getting up to anything that he would not, that would worry him. Sweet, I've just noticed a bunch of piglets off to our left. And the season of babies is quite a nice season. Lots of energy, because all the youngsters do have quite a bit more energy than the older ones, so they don't have to conserve their energy for hunting or looking after their young. So that, oh, that little piglet's being chased by an older... Oh, this is not a very friendly interaction. I think I'm going to just go a little bit closer to these warthogs, if my car allows me to. I'm sure you are starting to realize that this car doesn't always listen when we decide we want to go. There we go. Oops. Shame that giraffe. KG, with giraffe, that's quite a, it's very varied. So giraffe have quite loose social associations, and at about a year and a half, the calf may start moving away, but at later stages and throughout adulthood, the mother may join up with the calf or any other adults at any point. These warthogs don't look like they are passing them. I'm just going to stop over here. You can see them from here anyways, with the zebra in the background. Oops, just dropped my binoculars. You can see that they're all slick and shiny with mud. There's a mud wallow just next to us here that they've obviously indulged in this morning. I have to say that I'm quite jealous. I wouldn't mind indulging in a mud wallow at present. It is boiling. It's only 8:15. But thank goodness there has a little bit of a breeze has picked up, so we are surviving. And quite a nice multi-species scene with the impala coming in, warthog, zebra in the background. I think these two warthogs, the one that walked away definitely had been in the mud wallow. It looks like these two may go towards the mud wallow. I'm going to try and reposition just before they get to it because I would like to be able to see them in the wallowing, but I don't want to scare them away once they're there. These do look a little bit more relaxed than the one with the piglets. Oh, and plop, down he goes. See, these are quite young warthogs, and you see the one that hasn't got into the water yet. It's got tiny little tusks developing, but he's still got quite bright white whiskers. And those whiskers are to imitate tusks. So when they're young, those whiskers are quite a lot bigger because their tusks aren't grown yet. And as his tusks get bigger, then those whiskers will become less. He looks so content. Right, well, I think we are going to seek out some shade. We'll leave these warthogs to wallow. But we'll send you over to Mike, who has found himself a giraffe.
So our giraffes are still here, although they look like they're going to start making their way away from the water. This one looks like it's just having a bit of a scratch, to be honest, walking amongst the leaves there. That poor boorbean tree that the giraffe was just under has been absolutely destroyed by elephants. It's been completely ring-barked, so I suppose that this might be the last season that we get to spend watching the beautiful blooms on that tree. It was really good. It provided us with lots of fun mornings watching sunbirds and babblers and all sorts of birds hopping about the leaves and the flowers, but I think this year might be the last, unfortunately. And this other giraffe now looks like it wants to try and have maybe a drink or a little snack on that sickle bush that's just there at the edge of the water. But nothing else happening around here at the moment. All the impalas moved off, probably seeking some shade, because it is getting quite warm now as the sun starts to beat down on us. And there's nothing quite like it. The African summer sun. Today is an exceptionally warm morning. Kate, that is interesting. So giraffes don't really have to sleep that much, Kate. I mean, they really do with as little as an hour's sleep a day, even less, sometimes maybe just 20 minutes of sleep in a day. They're a bit different to us. I mean, as I've mentioned before, animals with higher brain functions, really high cognitive ability, like the great apes and humans, for example, we need a lot of sleep to keep our brain functioning at that maximum level. But giraffes and other animals tend to function more on instinct than anything else, and that's a subconscious thing. So they can do with a lot less sleep. And how they do sleep is that they'll stand up and doze for a few minutes at a time, and if they really want to get a deep sleep, what they'll do is they'll usually only do it when there's other giraffes around, and usually in a very open area, but they'll lie down just like a horse. Sometimes they'll curl their neck onto their rump and rest it there, or even I've heard people say that they'll rest it against the side of a tree with the head up. But it's not for very long, usually just for 10-15 minutes at a time, and only when there's plenty of other things to look out for the danger. So Kate, a lot less sleep than what we would normally have. Imagine only sleeping for 20 minutes in a day. It'd be terrifying. If I get less than 6 hours sleep, I'm as grumpy as a hippo with a hurt ear, or a hernia, as they say in The Lion King. Mad as a hippo with a hernia. These giraffes look like they got plenty of sleep because they're looking pretty relaxed. Gemma, these are southern giraffes. It's the only giraffe species that we get naturally occurring here in South Africa, the southern giraffe. There might well be other species in South Africa, but those will be ones that are brought in for zoo purposes. Goodness, I'm going to have to move out of Seb's way because I think my big head is going to be in the way there. But Gemma, southern giraffes. One of the most abundant of the giraffe species. Each different giraffe species has very distinctive patterns. Some have got nice square blocks, some have got much smaller, some are darker. But these ones are beautiful nonetheless. And in the meantime, we're going to send you over to JP, who's got some even more beautiful things.
Good morning and welcome back. And we currently at Stoffberg Waterhole, enjoying a view on some of the most beautiful of the butterflies that we can have in the area. The ones that we are currently looking at are called blues. It's an incredibly difficult group of butterflies to identify. However, their coloration pattern is for me some of the most beautiful. As you can see, the upper half is dark or is bluish in color, while the underparts are pale, which is quite common amongst most species of butterfly. And this is referred to as a flash coloration strategy, where they will confuse a predator by showing bright colors and then flying off. We also have some brown vein whites that came in, and another African monarch butterfly. All of these little butterflies are sipping up some moisture. For those of you that don't know about the African monarch, it's one of our toxic species of butterfly, which actually obtains a large number of toxins as a larvae from the milkweed plants which it feeds on, and therefore is not consumed by any predators. It's very similar in appearance to the American monarch, which is one of my favorite butterflies to actually study, as these American monarch butterflies, although we don't get them in Africa, can migrate up to 4,000 kilometers in distance. The brown vein whites that we have over here, they on average do a 3,000 kilometer distance migration. One of the odd movements, which is not really a migration, which is migrations are normally repeated as well as annual occurrence, was a group of locusts which got blown off course and crossed the Atlantic Ocean. These guys managed to travel a distance of some 4,500 kilometers. Pan for some of those black-winged stilts. And meanwhile, there's also a number of bird species that came in. And on the opposite side of the dam, we've got a black-winged stilt. These birds are easily identified by the black upper parts, their white underparts, and incredibly long red legs. As we might have mentioned before, they've got the longest legs relative to their body size. Normally what you see if you do focus in on their little bills is that they've got very long straight bills, which they use to scuttle insects off the water surface or by disturbing them from the water. Good morning, Mobile, and welcome to the show. If I have to take a rough guess from old lists that I have, it's probably close to 280 to 300 species, which has been recorded within the area. However, over a few good days of birding, you can maybe clock 114 species over 2 to 3 days. We also quite often have strange birds that do end up in the Kalahari. A year ago, we managed to see a crake that was blown off course and found its way close by to the research station. Normally, crakes are birds that are normally found in quite wet eastern half of South Africa and which associates with wetlands, which wasn't something that we had available at that moment. We've also just have Egyptian geese that's moved into the dam. These birds can be quite noisy at times. We often see them quite close by to sport fields and fields where they will graze, unlike many of the other duck species which dabble in water to catch their food. As mentioned on one of the previous shows, although it's called the Egyptian goose, it's not actually really a true goose. It is a duck. We're just going to sit still for a short while and just soak up all the beautiful sounds and the butterflies coming to drink. Good morning, Don. Welcome to the show. Personally, I'm not very good with that. However, there is people that are quite good with identifying certain species of caterpillar. However, most of them are incredibly tricky. Good morning, Haga, and welcome to the show. They're purely here to come and drink, and what they're doing is they're sucking up the moisture with their long proboscis from the mud. Sometimes we'll also see them doing that in the dung of a number of different species of animals, where they will just come and sip up that moisture. Quite often in the Lowveld, where there's elephants, we'll actually watch them where they come and sit on the elephant dung and do precisely the same. So even do that on top of lion dung. Shaft-tailed wider on top of it. The wider, the long tail. In the meanwhile, we're going to spend a little bit more time over here and see what we can find. But we're going to hand you over to Rowan.
Good morning everyone, and welcome to and Beyond Ngala. We've actually had quite a difficult morning, signal-wise, data-wise, but lovely to have you here finally. I haven't really found a lot, saw a few impalas, a few wildebeest. We're actually now heading towards the Timavachi River and we're driving back east, just parallel to it. We had trucks of the Birmingham Pride come back into the property and then cross back out in the easterly direction again. And they were still roaring from just east of our boundary, which is quite sad. Then we went into the south to investigate there, see if we can find any cheetah, no luck there. So yeah, busy morning, but didn't find too much, sadly. So we're hoping maybe this afternoon will deliver. Oopsie. Quite a bit of water still left from the rain we had the other day. So where we are now, it's a road called Inyala Loop, and it opens up to beautiful open clearings up ahead just before we hit the river. We might actually just pop into the river, see if we can find any sign of the Tswalu young male. His mom has pushed him away, and strangely enough, we haven't found tracks of the mother in a long time. The tracks of that lioness with the two cubs, they were walking here last night, going in that direction. But tracks are from last night. You can see there are a few Jenna tracks on top of it. There's even a porcupine track on top of it. Here's the quill to prove it. Yeah, so we want to see if we can find Tswalu young male's tracks. We think that, well, I think maybe the Tswalu young female could be denning, because we have not seen a lot of her tracks moving around anyway. So what she could be doing is find a nice little riverbed where it's thick enough to hide the cubs, and she doesn't need to move around too much. With all this rain, there's water everywhere. There's impala lambs everywhere. So she should be in this land in between. She doesn't really need to cross roads. Every now maybe just mark the territory. She is territory in that area, but like I said, we haven't seen too many her tracks. It is heating up very quickly. Also, the humidity is picking up. So we're hoping. I mean, it's been building for rain for quite some time. We're hoping for rain maybe tomorrow or the next day.
Now, no animal has been harmed during this. This is a moth that I found in my car, and it's obviously passed away. It did not make it, I'm afraid, but I thought this would be a really nice chance, since I'm not finding any other animals in this heat, to look closely at moths. And I think this is a cream-striped owl moth, and you see these two spots. This is where the name owl comes from, and this is a form of camouflage, if you like. These sort of spots are to look like the head or the eye and to confuse the predator. Lots of different organisms have it. It's very common in fish, where they'll have a sort of eye spot at the back of their body in the caudal area to confuse the predator. Where's the head? Is the head or is that the head? They get really, really confused and it throws the predator off. So that's exactly what this is for. Now, I'm going to do a little touchy thing here. I don't know if this will work. This animal is dead, everyone. Now, if I rub my fingers on the wings, it's very, very soft. Let me just try one more time. Maybe if you just zoom out a little bit, Simon. Okay. Now, if you zoom into my finger here, I don't actually know how visible this will be, but you can see there's a residue that's gone onto my finger. Can you see that? It looks like glitter, but it's actually not. This has come from the moth. And if we go back to the wing, you'll be able to see that oh dear, I just broke that one. Maybe if we turn it around, you'll be able to see that it's not powder. A lot of people assume that moths' wings are very, very powdery, but they're actually not. What it is just scales, and they come off because moths have a lot more scales and thicker scales than do butterflies. It's just a build-up of scales. This is a far better method, Lauren. Why did you not think this at the start? And you can see underneath, you can actually see the individual scales, and they're transparent. All butterflies and moths, their wings are transparent. It's just the way that the scales are layered that gives the colour. So look at that. It looks like eyeshadow for any girls out there, or boys. It looks like eyeshadow, but it's not powder. It's not anything that the moth is secreting. It's just the scales. Moths and butterflies do shed their scales just as we shed our skin. So if you did this across the whole wing, you would see that underneath the wings are actually just transparent. Now, if we go to the head, this sort of line between moths and butterflies, I see lots of arguments on social media about it. They're in Lepidoptera, the order, which means the scaly-winged in Greek. And there's quite a lot of blurred lines between moths and butterflies. So, for example, if we look at the antenna, there's no club-like end. It's just a straight antenna. So there's one key right there, one key feature that it's a moth. They also say that moths have feather tips, but this one clearly doesn't. Moths rest with their wings down. And some butterflies rest with their wings up. But there's blurred lines. You'll find some, oh, dear me, no, I'm going to keep it. Some moths will rest with their wings up and vice versa. So there's always the exception to the rule. There's always those species that end up doing what the other one is supposed to do. So it's very, very blurred. There's lots of arguments about how clear is the line defining moths and butterflies. But isn't this individual absolutely beautiful? There's said to be more, right, okay, Simon, just let me turn it around. You can see his proboscis is out. What a lovely view. So it has 6 legs, of course, as all insects do. And right here at the mouth part, this is the proboscis. Now, this is how they feed. They don't eat, they drink, and they use a straw. And it's really long, and it normally curls under. I hope you can all see that. And that's how they suck up nectar. And it's not just nectar. They'll also suck up muddy water, blood. Butterflies and moths have both been known to land on carcasses and suck blood. And I don't know how well you can see this. My hand is shaking, but the proboscis is so long. It goes all the way to the end of the body. But normally it's in a really tight curl, and they extend it using muscular control when they're ready to drink, when they're sucking up nectar. Isn't that just lovely? And you can see the segmented body. This is the head, the sensory center, all insects have. And then the next part is a transport center. All the legs are attached to the same segment. You see that? This is the thorax. Now the abdomen is the lower part. There's no legs or wings attached to the abdomen. The transport center, the middle segment, is where all the legs are and the attachment sites for the wings. Now the abdomen here is where the gut is and the reproductive areas. So there's 3 different segments to insects: the head, the thorax and the abdomen. And you can remember at the sensory center, the transport center, and here you have the generative center. That's how you can sort of break an insect down. Isn't this just lovely? They don't have long lifespans, I'm afraid. And normally when you see, I did break part of this wing, but when you see them this tatty, you normally know they're at the end of the lifespan and they're a lot older. So I'm going to put this one on the ground to rest, and we're now going to send you down to JP.
Will this be good if I keep it like this? Yeah. Good morning and welcome back again to Tswalu. At the moment we're still sitting at Stoffberg Waterhole and admiring some weaver nest and watching the males building these beautiful nests in the aim of attracting a number of females that they can mate with. But in the meanwhile we were also discussing how to actually identify these different yellow and black colored weavers. So we just thought we might do a little bit of a demonstration and to show you how easy it is. So out of the 3 common species of weavers that we find in South Africa, there are lesser mask, a southern mask weaver and a village weaver. Fortunately for us, one less weaver in this area, and that's a village weaver, which we only find to the eastern half of South Africa. So it leaves us with 2 different weaver species, which is both the southern mask and the lesser mask weaver. So lesser mask weaver is fairly easy. If we do look at the page, we can notice that it's got a white eye and a round little black bib, which it will develop as part of its breeding plumage. And only mature breeding males will develop these bright colors, as the females would like to remain dull and unobtrusive so that they're not detected by predators. And if we do come towards the southern mask weaver, which is the second species which is also breeding over here, we'll notice that they've got a red eye. And what we'll also notice is that their black bib only extends from the crown down towards the throat. However, what we will notice with the lesser mask weaver is that there's quite an extensive amount of black going on top of the head. Then with a third species that we don't have in this area, which is the village weaver, the black stops right before the crown. And then on top of that, we sometimes will notice that in certain parts of Zimbabwe that you'll find an all black headed version, which was one that we won't find within South Africa. So which will not let us confuse it with any of the other species. On top of that, we can also use the nest structure of a number of different weaver species to identify which species it is, as that they either have no nest entrance, or slight tunnels, or incredibly long nest tunnels which will be formed underneath the nest. They also aim to keep these little nest entrances fairly small, so that only the female can fit in there, to prevent that species like cuckoo can easily sneak into them. The specific species of cuckoo which will generally parasitize these weavers is known as a Diderot's cuckoo, which is a fairly common cuckoo throughout southern Africa. Good morning, Bernie, and welcome to the show. And birds are absolutely fascinating. Sometimes I find their behavior even more complex than that of animals. And when there's no animals, there tends to always be birds and insects to look at. I'm just going to ask Craig to maybe just quickly scan for us onto the log, which is on the opposite side of the water body. There's a beautiful bright blue iridescent bird that I would like to point out to you. These are known as Cape glossy starlings. There's two very similar looking starlings which we find in South Africa, the Cape glossy starling and the greater blue-eared starling. However, we only have a Cape glossy starling on this side, which makes identification fairly easy. And sometimes under bright light conditions, it's quite tricky to, under dull light conditions, to be able to identify the two birds from one another if you don't hear the call. I'm just going to see if I can find them again. I just moved behind the log. We've unfortunately lost him, but we're just going to zoom back in onto the butterflies and then tell you a little bit more about those bright blue iridescent colors that you see within the glossy starlings. So these colors don't actually really exist. They're due to the melanin crystals that form under the wings, and combined with a feather, they create a functional prism which refracts and bends light, creating these incredibly bright blue colors which we see. Although we perceive it as quite bright, under good light conditions, these birds will see it even as brighter colors as they see in the UV spectrum as well. We just got the starling back. Is this having a bath? Good morning, Kavi. That is a question that I often get asked, and it probably differs from day to day. But in general, it's Cape wagtails. There's just something pleasant about watching them and calming about watching them as they move around, catching little insects, making their little call and wagging their tails up and down. And meanwhile, we're going to start moving on and hand you over to Laura, who's currently viewing one of her favorite insects, dragonflies, which is also one of my favorites. They always remind me of little flying jewels because of their bright colors.
This one is alive, I promise, but it's staying remarkably still. The dragonfly. Just perched. Warming up in the sun. We're already incredibly warm, but if you're ectothermic, then maybe you need to warm up every now and then. Now, because just like butterflies and moths, dragonflies have different phases of their life cycle. They're not born, or they don't hatch the way in their juvenile phase that they will be in their adult phase. They undergo a metamorphosis. And the sort of sole purpose of the adult phase of being a dragonfly is to reproduce. Yes, you need to eat and drink, of course you do, but it's to reproduce as much as you can. And that's why they really don't have long life cycles at all. Oh, there's one just above it, Simon. I think there's a different species slightly above this one. Oh, that's a different one. Okay, we've got another one. I think this is the percher, the barbed percher that we had the other day. Thank you, James Richard. And if we just move to the right, there you go. There's another one. Look at those incredibly long wings. It could be another percher. Would you look at that? Stunning. And they're all mating, but it's really hard to get mating on camera because they do it flying. A lot of their time they're mobile when they're mating. It's very rarely stationary, and that's why it's so difficult to see. But we've got 3 different species there. They're everywhere. Perfect food source for lots of animals out here. How wonderful. I think we're going to sit here in the shade and enjoy this a little bit longer.
Welcome back and to Tswalu. We're still at Stoffberg Dam, so still watching a number of different insects. And just to linking on to what Lauren has been doing, we've also been watching a number of dragonflies. And I'm not sure if we'll be able to follow it because they're so fast in terms of flight, but we have a number of males and females that are flying together, where the male is clasping the female. He's busy mating, and what she's doing, she's dropping eggs into the water, where a young will actually then develop. The larvae of a dragonfly is very different to that of the adult, and they also have quite interesting jaw structures which can shoot forward, but they can grab their prey. So they normally go for aquatic insects as well as small little tadpoles that they might feed on. However, the adults will feed normally on flying insects. One of the other insects that we were trying to show you earlier on, but also very fast in flight and very difficult to get a view on, is a number of different species of wasps. These have been coming in and out towards the water, and they're collecting little pieces of mud. Quite often what they will do is that they will then place a caterpillar in a little mud construction that they've created. And that will be used for an egg that will be laid in it, where the young will develop inside that little caterpillar.
The species. Anyone who does, please send it in. I don't immediately recognize this one from last year with that orange and black body. It's almost like a bee pretending to be a dragonfly, or vice versa. Normally long bodies like that, I wonder if this is a damselfly. Yeah, I think it's a damselfly. Apologies, everyone. The long, skinny bodies normally suggest damselflies, and the forewings and the hind wings are normally equal in size. I take back my words. I think this is a damselfly. With dragonflies, their bodies are very short and fat, and the forewings and the hind wings are unequal in size. But this is a very large individual, either way. There was a wonderful study conducted when I was in the Maldives by a wonderful man called Charles Anderson. And all of a sudden in the Maldives, during one of the monsoons, every single island, all 1,200 of them, got covered and littered in dragonflies. It's almost like they appeared out of nowhere. And if you know the Maldives, it's in the middle of the Indian Ocean. It's just little jewels in the ocean. Tiny little islands in the atoll structure. And what was suggests is that these dragonflies are moving using the wind because they're very small insects. They can't really propel themselves over great distances. And they're using the weather systems in the rainy monsoon to complete a huge migration from southern India all the way to southern Africa. That's a very large distance, especially if you're a tiny little insect. So it's said that they come back again as well. So it's a round trip, and it can take anywhere of between 14,000 to 18,000 kilometers. And not only that, it's across the ocean and not land. So very small little insect are making a remarkable journey from southern India to South Africa. You can't fly that. You have to use the winds. And that's why some of them end up dying, I'm afraid, and we find them in Maldives. Now, Maldives doesn't have any sources of fresh water. It's an island nation surrounded by ocean. Unless you collect rainwater, that's all you've got. And they require breeding pools. So they don't breed in the Maldives, but they are said to make that trip. And Maldives is one of the stopping points. But it's not the same individual. It's not the same dragonfly that leaves southern India and makes its way to South Africa. It takes 4 generations to make the full round trip. 4 generations. So one individual will start, the next individual will pick it up, another individual, and it'll be the 4th individual that completes that round trip. Now, the monarch butterfly in America is also renowned for making a huge migration, but dragonflies also make an incredible ones themselves. Ah, what a great end to my drive. But for now, we're going to send you across to Kim and her lions.
So we've done a bit of driving around, and we found not very much because everything has ducked into shade. So we decided to come back and check on the lions, Mountain Pride, and they have actually come out a little bit, which is not what I was expecting. I was expecting to come here and not see anything. But I think the reason that they've probably come out is maybe it's too still inside of that thicket, and they want the added benefit of being outside in the shade, but also with that cool air. Well, not so cool, but just at least some airflow flowing over them, helping them to keep cool. And you can see them panting away, trying to release as much heat as possible and keep themselves nice and cool. I think when it gets to this time of day, as early as it is, and we looked at the temperature half an hour ago and it was already 31 degrees at 8:30 in the morning, which is just ridiculous. I think that it's going to just carry on getting hotter and hotter and hotter, and all the animals are going to go deeper and deeper and deeper into nice, dense, cool thickets. It's absolutely the only thing to do on a day like today. And I do not doubt that if and, well, I suppose when we come back here this evening, because I think we'll come back and see what these lions are doing for the drive on this afternoon, I don't doubt that they will be very much in the same position that we find them in now. But because they have been relatively active, the females, this morning, as it cools down this evening, they may start looking to hunt again, which would be very cool. So I think we'll definitely be revisiting this pride this evening. And you can see the one with its belly up in the air. You can imagine how nice and cool that must feel, that big fat belly just facing upwards with the cool breeze blowing over it. Must be quite a soothing pose. We are probably...
Now, since I can't draw Olivia anymore, which is such a loss to us, it was so sad. Nature is nature, but it was really sad. I've started drawing dragonflies, and their anatomy is just, incredible. Ah, there we go. Got a backup one. The damselfly. And with such a short lifespan, it can be a few weeks up to a year. It's similar to butterflies. Depending on the species, they've really got to be successful at what they do, and they make the most of summer out here, or the late spring to the very end of summer. That's what they're going to utilize in order to survive. And if they don't make the most of summer, it's very unlikely that they would succeed. The temperatures, although it's hard to imagine today, drop here. It gets very, very cold out here. And each of these glistening wings that you can see, that's such a beautiful shot, Simon. It's attached to the thorax, as I already mentioned, the transport center, but it has separate muscles. Inside that thorax, which is so small, there's separate muscles powering those wings to move independently. Each of the 4 wings can move completely independently and allow this organism to reach speeds of 30 miles per hour on its own. That's not when it's powered by the wind. Obviously, when it's powered by the wind, it's going to go a lot faster. In the 3 pairs of legs at the very end, there's a flexible foot, a really flexy foot with a flexible joint and a pair of claws. So they can really snatch things up with their claws. And they can bend their foot, and that allows them to perch in the positions that we see them perching on in these branches. They can't walk on the ground. They haven't adapted to be terrestrial walkers. They're perchers and aerial hunters. Walking on the ground is not going to cut it for a butterfly. Their body shape won't allow that. But it has came to that time of day where the sun is now fully up. We're all hot. It's time for breakfast and the end of the sunrise safari. So thank you everyone for jumping on board. All your comments and wonderful questions. Please do join us again this afternoon. Have a great day.